Tonight, we embark on a gentle sojourn, not to arrive at a destination, but to immerse ourselves fully in the present moment. Our guide is the timeless wisdom of the Buddha, teachings that have offered solace to restless minds for over 2.5 millennia. These are not edicts to be obeyed, nor doctrines to be blindly memorized, but rather gentle invitations. Invitations to perceive the world anew, to loosen the grip of our anxieties, and to discover the profound wellspring of peace that resides deep within us all. We will traverse this path through ancient stories and simple yet profound truths. These truths bypass the clamor of the busy mind, speaking directly to the quiet knowing of the heart. We will learn to regard our thoughts not as tyrannical rulers, but as fleeting clouds drifting across the sky. Our difficult emotions will be seen not as adversaries to be vanquished, but as messengers bearing invitations to healing and growth. Welcome to Sleepy Monk. Consider this your sanctuary, a sacred space to quiet your mind and nourish your spirit. There is no task you must accomplish, no flaw you need mend, no ideal self you must strive to embody. Simply allow these words to gently wash over you, like a soothing balm. If this path of quiet contemplation stirs something deep within you, I invite you to subscribe and return to this haven whenever you need to reconnect with the peace that is your birthright. For now, simply breathe. Let us begin this shared journey. Our exploration of profound peace commences with a gentle, honest examination of the very nature of our own minds. It begins with one of the most fundamental teachings of the Buddha, a truth that, once grasped, unlocks the door to liberation. This is the teaching on what is often called suffering, although a more apt term might be friction. It is that subtle yet pervasive sense of unsatisfactoriness, the nagging feeling that things are never quite right. It is the stress we experience when we resist the natural ebb and flow of life, when we cling desperately to fleeting moments of pleasure and forcefully push away anything that causes us pain. This friction is not a punishment, nor is it a character flaw. It is simply an inherent part of the human experience when the mind remains untrained. By turning toward this friction with a gentle and curious gaze, we take the first genuine step toward a peace that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. There is an old story of a young woman named Mara, who dwelled in a village nestled at the foot of a great mountain. Mara was a weaver of exceptional skill, her artistry unmatched throughout the land. She wove tapestries of breathtaking beauty, their colors as vibrant as the sunrise, and their patterns as intricate as a spider's delicate web. People journeyed from every corner of the kingdom to purchase her creations, and she was widely celebrated for her extraordinary talent. Mara's identity, her very sense of self-worth, was inextricably woven into every thread of her tapestries. "I am a great weaver," she believed. "This is who I am." For a time, this belief brought her immense happiness. But with her growing success came a quiet, insidious fear. Each new tapestry had to surpass the beauty of the last. She would lie awake at night, her mind racing with complex designs, consumed by the worry that her inspiration would one day vanish, leaving her barren and empty. The pure joy of creation gradually became tainted by the bitter anxiety of expectation. One day, a royal messenger arrived, bearing a commission from the king himself. He desired a tapestry that would capture the very essence of the kingdom, its verdant forests, its winding rivers, its diverse people, and its indomitable spirit. It was the greatest honor of Mara's life, and yet it filled her with profound terror. She constructed a new, larger loom and procured the most exquisite threads of silk and gold imaginable. For weeks, she tried in vain to begin, but her hands trembled uncontrollably. The immensity of the task paralyzed her. The fear of falling short, of not living up to her own lofty reputation, became a cage from which she could not escape. Her loom stood silent and empty, a stark monument to her overwhelming fear. Her once joyful workshop transformed into a place of dread and despair. She grew withdrawn and profoundly unhappy, the relentless friction in her mind a constant and agonizing torment. One evening, unable to endure the oppressive silence of her workshop any longer, she walked up the mountain path as the sun began its descent. She arrived at a small hermitage, the dwelling place of an old nun renowned for her quiet wisdom and profound understanding. Mara, her voice choked with despair, recounted her predicament. The old nun listened patiently, her eyes as calm and serene as a deep forest pool. When Mara had finished speaking, the nun offered neither advice nor facile solutions. She simply said, "Come, let us watch the sunset." They sat together on a rock overlooking the valley below. The sky was a breathtaking canvas of brilliant oranges, deep purples, and soft pinks, a true masterpiece of light and color that shifted and changed with each passing second. "No one expects the sunset to hold still," the nun said softly. "Its beauty lies in its very transience, its inevitable vanishing. It does not concern itself with whether tonight's display is as beautiful as the sunset of the previous evening. It simply is." She then turned to Mara, her eyes filled with profound kindness. "You are not the weaver," she said. "You are the loom. Life itself is the weaver. Joy, fear, inspiration, and emptiness are all merely threads of different colors. You have been striving to control the threads, to weave only with the threads of gold. But a tapestry woven with only a single color lacks depth and dimension. Your problem is not that you experience fear. The problem is that you believe you shouldn't." Mara felt the truth of these words settle deep within her bones, resonating with an undeniable clarity. The tension in her shoulders began to dissipate, like mist dissolving in the morning sun. She realized that she was not defined by her success, nor was she defined by her fear. She was simply the space through which these experiences moved. She walked back down the mountain under a sky ablaze with a million stars. The next morning, she returned to her workshop. She took a deep breath and began to weave. She abandoned her striving to create the perfect tapestry. Instead, she simply wove what resided in her heart that day, the somber color of her fear, the rough texture of her anxiety, but also the deep purple of the sunset and the shimmering silver of the starlight. The tapestry she created was unlike any she had made before. It was not flawless, but it was profoundly honest. It was alive with the raw beauty of authentic experience. And in the act of weaving her whole self, not just the carefully curated good parts, she discovered true freedom. Mara's story is, in essence, our story. The friction, the dukkha, is not the daunting royal commission or the paralyzing fear of failure. It is the clinging to a rigid identity, the resistance to the full and vibrant spectrum of our human experience. The Buddha's first noble truth points directly to this fundamental reality. Life inevitably contains experiences that are unpleasant: sickness, loss, disappointment. These are simply inherent parts of the landscape. The second noble truth reveals that our suffering arises not from these experiences themselves, but from our craving, our insatiable thirst for reality to conform to our desires. Mara suffered because she desperately craved to be only the perfect weaver, resisting the threads of fear and doubt. This craving is a natural instinct of the untrained mind. We are conditioned from a young age to chase pleasure and avoid pain. We construct our identities around our successes and our strengths, striving to conceal our vulnerabilities and imperfections. But this is akin to building a dam in the midst of a flowing river. The pressure inevitably builds until it becomes unbearable. The Buddha's teaching is a radical invitation to cease building the dam altogether. It is an invitation to recognize that our craving, our resistance, is the true source of the pressure we feel. When we pursue happiness as a permanent state of being, we are destined for disappointment because everything in existence is inherently impermanent. When we run from sadness, we inadvertently grant it more power over us. True wisdom lies in turning toward our experience with gentle and courageous curiosity, widening our embrace to include all the threads, both light and dark. This understanding is profoundly empowering. It means that the key to our peace is not in changing the world outside of us, but in transforming the view from within. We cannot halt the river of life from flowing, but we can learn to navigate its currents with grace and wisdom, finding our balance not by resisting the flow, but by moving in harmony with it. To bring this wisdom into your own life, you don't need to be a weaver or a monk. You can begin right where you are, in the midst of your daily experience. The first practice is simply to cultivate the ability to observe the friction in your own mind. When you feel that familiar tightening of anxiety, that flash of irritation, or that pang of disappointment, try not to immediately become lost in the narrative. Instead, pause. Take one conscious breath and for just a moment step back and observe the feeling as if you were a scientist studying a peculiar weather pattern. Gently name it to yourself. Ah, this is frustration, or this is the feeling of wanting things to be different. This simple act of naming and observing creates a space of awareness. In that space, you are no longer the emotion itself. You are the one who is aware of the emotion. This is the beginning of true freedom. The next step is to become curious about the craving that lies beneath the surface. What is your mind thirsting for in this moment? If you find yourself frustrated in a traffic jam, the underlying craving is likely for the traffic to simply disappear, for reality to bend to the dictates of your schedule. If you are hurt by a friend's insensitive comment, the craving is for their words to have been different, for the past to be rewritten. See if you can identify this underlying desire without judgment, regarding it with the same gentle curiosity you would extend to a child who desperately wishes for it to be sunny on a rainy day. This understanding softens the heart. You don't need to fight the craving. You simply have to see it for what it is, a natural but ultimately unskillful strategy of the untrained mind. Finally, practice softening your body. Our mental resistance often manifests as physical tension. When you notice the presence of friction, scan your body. Is your jaw tight? Are your shoulders hunched? Is your stomach tied in knots? Consciously invite these parts of your body to soften. You cannot think your way out of resistance, but you can breathe your way through it. As you exhale, imagine the tension gently dissolving, like ice melting in the warmth of the sun. This is not about forcing relaxation. It is a gentle allowing, a physical expression of letting go. By practicing in these small moments, you are retraining your mind, teaching it that it is safe to feel the full spectrum of life, that you don't need to resist reality in order to be at peace. You are learning to become the loom, allowing all the threads of life to be woven into the beautiful, imperfect, and ever-changing tapestry of your being. Let us pause here for a moment. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own breath, a quiet anchor in the ceaseless flow of time. Allow your body to soften, releasing any tension you may be holding. Let the sharp edges of your day melt into this quiet space of rest. If this journey into stillness resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk so we can continue to walk this path together, discovering the peace that is always waiting for our return. We continue our journey by exploring a truth that is both profoundly simple and radically transformative. The teaching of impermanence, or Nika. The universe is in a constant state of flux. Nothing remains static, not the towering mountains, not the distant stars, not our physical bodies, and certainly not our fleeting thoughts. Everything that arises will, without exception, eventually pass away. We often experience this fundamental truth as a source of anxiety. We fear loss, we grieve change, and we desperately attempt to cling to moments of happiness as if they were solid, unchanging objects. But the Buddha taught that our suffering stems not from the fact of change itself, but from our resistance to it. The teaching of impermanence is not a lament, it is a gateway to freedom. When we learn to cease fighting the natural flow of life and instead embrace its dynamic, ever-changing nature, we discover a joy that is far deeper and more resilient than any fleeting pleasure. In a valley nestled between two great mountains, there once lived a master potter. Her name was Asara, and her work was renowned throughout the land for its exquisite beauty and its near-perfect forms. Her bowls were so finely crafted that they seemed to hum with a life of their own. People would travel for days to acquire one of her pieces, believing that its perfection would bring a sense of order and peace to their homes. A young apprentice named Kyle came to study with her. Kyle was undeniably talented, but also profoundly impatient. He was obsessed with creating a perfect pot, one without flaws or imperfections, a masterpiece that would endure for eternity. He would labor for hours on a single vessel, his brow furrowed in intense concentration. But invariably, just as he believed he had achieved perfection, he would discover a tiny flaw, a slight asymmetry, a minuscule bubble in the glaze, or a faint tremor from his own unsteady hand. Consumed by frustration, he would smash the pot into pieces and begin again, his workshop floor littered with the shards of his own impossibly high expectations. One afternoon, after a particularly frustrating day, Kyle watched as Azara sat at her wheel. She worked with a joyful ease, her hands moving in harmonious concert with the clay as if engaged in a graceful dance. She crafted a beautiful, elegant vase, but as she was lifting it from the wheel, her hands slipped, and a deep, jagged crack appeared down one side. Kyle gasped, fully expecting her to be devastated, but Azara simply smiled. She picked up a small brush, and instead of discarding the ruined vase, She began to paint a delicate golden lacquer along the line of the crack, transforming the flaw into a shimmering vein of gold. She then placed the vase in a special part of her studio alongside dozens of other pieces, each bearing its own unique golden repair. This was the art of kintsugi, the ancient Japanese art of embracing breakage and imperfection. You are trying to create a pot that denies its own nature, Isara said to Kyle, her voice filled with warmth and understanding. Clay is of the earth. It is inherently fragile. It is meant to change, to crack, and ultimately to return to dust. To fight against this is to fight against the clay itself. A pot's life is a journey of transformation. Its cracks tell the story of that journey, of the intense heat of the kiln, of the hands that have lovingly held it, and perhaps even of an accidental fall. They are not signs of failure. They are the indelible marks of a life fully lived. She gestured to the vase with the golden seam. This crack has not made the vase less beautiful, she said. It has made it unique. It has given it a story to tell. True beauty, Kyle, is not the absence of flaws. It is the loving embrace of them. Kyle looked at his own growing pile of broken shards, the remnants of his relentless quest for an impossible perfection. He realized that he had been trying to create something that stood outside of life, outside of time itself. Azara was showing him how to find beauty in the very heart of life's inherent fragility. He picked up two of his broken pieces, and for the first time, instead of seeing failure, he saw an opportunity. He began the slow, patient process of mending, not to conceal the break, but to honor it. The story of Isara and the cracked pot is a profound metaphor for the teaching of impermanence. We are all like Kyle, striving for a kind of perfection and permanence that life simply does not offer. We long for our bodies to remain young and healthy, for our relationships to exist in a state of perpetual harmony, and for our moments of happiness to last forever. We treat life's inevitable cracks, our illnesses, our heartbreaks, our failures, as tragedies to be hidden or overcome. But the wisdom of Anika teaches us that these cracks are not mistakes. They are an inevitable and essential part of our shared human journey. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence is a call to see life as it truly is, a continuous, dynamic flow. Everything we can perceive with our senses, from our own fleeting thoughts and emotions to the distant stars in the night sky, is in a state of constant transformation. Attempting to hold on to any of it is like trying to grasp a handful of water. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. Our suffering is the tension inherent in that futile squeeze. When we are caught in the throes of a difficult emotion, such as sadness or anger, it can feel all-consuming, as if it has become a permanent part of our identity. We say, "I am sad," as if sadness is a solid thing that has somehow replaced our true self. But impermanence reminds us that this is merely an illusion. Sadness is simply a weather pattern passing through the vast open sky of our awareness. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. When we can remember this fundamental truth, we can meet our pain with less fear, allowing it to be present without resistance, knowing that it, like everything else, will inevitably change. This understanding also revolutionizes our relationship with joy. Instead of clinging to happy moments with a desperate fear of their ending, we can learn to savor them fully, with a heart filled with gratitude. We can appreciate the warmth of the sun on our skin without obsessing over the inevitable arrival of clouds. This is the essence of non-attachment, not a cold, aloof detachment, but a loving, wholehearted participation in the dance of life, without attempting to control the music. This teaching frees us from the tyranny of the past and the anxiety of the future. The past is merely a collection of moments that have already dissolved into the annals of time. The future is simply a collection of moments that have not yet arisen. All we ever truly have is this present moment, and this present moment is always fresh, always new, always changing. Peace is found in learning to rest in the dynamic stillness of the now. How can we integrate this profound understanding of impermanence into the very fabric of our lives? The key lies not in intellectual comprehension, but in direct, felt experience. It begins with the gentle art of paying attention. A simple yet powerful practice is to choose one natural phenomenon and observe it regularly. This could be a tree outside your window, the moon in the night sky, or even a humble houseplant on your desk. Make a point to observe it each day, noticing the subtle changes that occur over time, a new leaf unfurling, a flower blooming and then wilting, the way the light strikes it differently at various times of day. This practice, when done consistently, retrains the mind to perceive change not as an isolated event, but as the constant underlying reality of existence. Another invaluable practice is to become a curious observer of your own inner world. Sit quietly for a few minutes each day and simply watch the flow of your thoughts and feelings. Don't attempt to stop them or change them. Imagine that you are sitting on the bank of a river, watching leaves and twigs float by. Some thoughts might be dark and heavy, while others are light and fleeting. Simply watch them arise, linger for a moment, and then dissolve. Notice that you are not the thoughts themselves. You are the awareness that is observing them. This practice cultivates a sense of spaciousness within you, a quiet center that remains untouched by the constant churn of the mind. You can also incorporate a practice of letting go meditation into your daily routine. At the end of your day, find a comfortable position and mentally review the events that have transpired. As you bring each event to mind, a pleasant conversation, a moment of frustration, a task completed, consciously practice letting it go. You can visualize placing it on a leaf and watching it float away down a gentle river, or you can simply say to yourself, "This moment is over. I release it." This is not about erasing your memories, but about loosening your grip on them. It is a way of acknowledging that the past is complete, freeing you to meet the present moment with openness and presence. Finally, bring this awareness into your interactions with others. When you are with a loved one, be fully present, recognizing that this moment is unique and will never come again. This recognition infuses your relationships with a preciousness and a tenderness that are often lost when we take things for granted. When you truly understand that everything and everyone is impermanent, you naturally begin to love more fully, to forgive more easily, and to appreciate the profound gift of sharing this fleeting journey with others. You learn to honor the cracks in yourself and in those you love, recognizing them as the beautiful golden seams that tell the story of a life fully and authentically lived. Let's pause here again, just for a moment. Take a slow, deep breath, allowing the air to fill your lungs completely, and then release it with a gentle sigh. Feel your body sinking a little deeper into the surface that supports it. Let go of the day. Let go of the need to be anywhere else. You are here, in this quiet space, and that is enough. We now turn our attention inward to one of the most subtle and liberating teachings of the Buddha, the doctrine of anatta, or not self. This teaching can sound strange or even frightening at first, as it seems to challenge the very foundation of who we believe ourselves to be. We live our lives with a strong sense of I or me at the very center of our experience, an inner commander who is thinking our thoughts, feeling our emotions, and making our decisions. But the Buddha invites us to carefully examine this seemingly solid, separate self and to see if we can actually find it. The teaching of not self is not a denial of your existence. It is rather an invitation to discover a far more spacious, interconnected, and joyful way of being, a way of being that is free from the heavy burden of a fixed identity. In a monastery renowned for its serene, silent gardens, there lived a monk named Jin. He was constantly plagued by a relentless inner critic. His mind was an incessant stream of self-judgment. My meditation is not deep enough. I am not as compassionate as the other monks. I will never achieve enlightenment. This sense of a flawed, inadequate self was a heavy cloak that he wore day and night. He believed that this I was a solid, real entity that was failing miserably at its spiritual task. One day, the abbot of the monastery, a wise old master, summoned Jin to his chambers. He didn't speak, but instead handed Jin a beautiful, ornate chariot, a small-scale model that was a true masterpiece of craftsmanship. "Tell me, Jin," the abbot said, "what is this?" "It is a chariot, master," Jin replied. "Are you sure?" the abbot asked, his eyes twinkling with amusement. He then began to dismantle the model. He removed, "Is this wheel the chariot?" "No, master," Jin said. The abbot removed the other wheel, the axle, the frame, the decorative canopy. With each piece, he asked the same question, and each time Jin's answer remained the same, "No, master." Soon, all the individual parts of the chariot lay disassembled on the floor. Now the abbot asked, "Where is the chariot?" "The chariot," Jin said slowly, a look of dawning realization spreading across his face, "is not a single discrete thing. It is a temporary collection of parts working together in harmony. It is merely a name we give to a process. The abbot smiled, a deep, knowing smile. And so it is with the self you are so worried about, he said. You look for this I that is failing, this jinn who is not good enough. But where is he? Is he your body? Your body is constantly changing, comprised of parts that are not permanently you. Is he your thoughts? Your thoughts are like ephemeral clouds drifting across the sky, appearing and vanishing. Our emotions are transient. Are they the true essence of you? Are your feelings as changeable as the weather, the definitive you? He gestured towards the scattered components of what looked like a dismantled chariot on the floor. What you call self is merely like this chariot, a collection of ever-shifting processes, the physical body, sensations, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness. We assign this collection a name, craft a story around it, and then mistakenly believe that the name represents something solid and unchanging. But there is no permanent I seated in the driver's seat of this chariot. There is only the ongoing process of life itself, unfolding moment by moment. Jin, utterly speechless, sat in stunned silence. The weighty cloak of self-judgment that he usually wore began to feel surprisingly lighter. If there was no fixed, inherently flawed self, then who exactly was doing all the failing? The voice of his inner critic, usually so deafening, suddenly seemed less potent, like the hollow pronouncements of a king who had lost his kingdom. He wasn't a failure etched in stone. He was a dynamic process, and a process by its very nature cannot truly fail. It can only unfold, evolve, and transform. The abbot's lesson struck directly at the heart of the teaching of anatta, or not self. We pour vast amounts of energy into constructing, meticulously polishing, and fiercely defending our carefully curated sense of self. We build it brick by brick, using memories as foundational stones, accomplishments as decorative flourishes, roles as load-bearing pillars, relationships as connecting archways, and deeply held beliefs as the roof that shelters it all. We then retreat inside this self-constructed identity, living as if it were an impregnable fortress. But this fortress, ironically, is also a prison, confining us within its walls. It limits our potential, makes us emotionally rigid, and leaves us fragile because any challenge to our carefully constructed identity feels like a direct threat to our very existence. The teaching of not self provides the key that unlocks the prison door, revealing that what we perceive as a solid, unchanging self is, upon closer inspection, nothing more than an illusion. It's a beautiful, complex, and perpetually changing process, a flowing river of experience, but it is most definitely not a static thing. The Buddha identified 5 fundamental aspects of this dynamic process, known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. These are rupa, our physical body; vedana, sensations, our sensory experiences; sana, perceptions, our mind's interpretation of those sensations; sankhara, mental formations, encompassing our thoughts, emotions, and ingrained habits; and vijnana, consciousness, the basic awareness that underlies the other 4. He invited us to carefully examine each of these aggregates, questioning, is this permanent? Is this truly me? Can I control this completely? The answer to all 3 questions, unequivocally, is no. Our bodies inevitably age and change, our feelings are notoriously unpredictable, and our thoughts often resemble a chaotic, swirling stream. There is no single, stable entity to be found lurking within. This realization is not a cause for nihilism or despair. Uh, Quite the contrary. It is profoundly liberating. If you are not a fixed, immutable identity, then you are not irrevocably stuck. You are not defined and confined by your past mistakes. You are not hopelessly trapped within your current anxieties. You are a flowing river, constantly in motion, not a stagnant pond festering with the debris of the past. The anxious person you believe yourself to be is simply a temporary pattern of thoughts and feelings, a passing weather system in the vast landscape of your being. The person who experienced failure is merely a memory, a snapshot from a previous moment. These are not your permanent, defining essence. This understanding also fundamentally revolutionizes our relationships with others. When we loosen our grip on a fixed idea of our own self, we naturally cease imposing fixed identities onto others. We stop forcing people into restrictive mental boxes. He is inherently selfish, or she is perpetually unreliable. We begin to perceive that everyone, just like us, is a complex and ever-changing process, shaped by countless conditions, both visible and invisible, that we can never fully comprehend. This profound insight provides the fertile ground from which true compassion grows, allowing us to see the shared humanity in others with greater clarity, softening our hearts and dissolving the barriers of judgment. So, how can we begin to directly experience this truth of not self? This is not a concept to be passively believed, but a reality to be actively investigated within the laboratory of our own personal experience. One of the most direct and effective pathways is through the practice of vipassana, or insight meditation. The essence of this practice is to calmly observe the five aggregates in action, witnessing their constant flux. Find a comfortable place to sit, and for a few minutes, simply bring your awareness to your physical body. Notice the subtle sensations of breath entering and leaving your lungs, the feeling of pressure where your body makes contact with the seat, any areas of warmth or coolness. Just observe these sensations as ever changing physical phenomena without clinging to them or labeling them as my body. See them simply as rupa or form and vedana or sensation, arising and dissolving within the vastness of awareness. Then gently shift your attention to your mind. Watch as thoughts spontaneously appear. Don't engage with their content. Don't judge them. Don't try to suppress them. Just passively notice them as transient mental events, like clouds drifting across the sky. A thought about the future arises, a memory from the past surfaces, a vivid image appears in your mind's eye. Label them gently, thinking, remembering, planning. Notice that they come and go entirely on their own, arising from and dissolving back into the void. They are not your thoughts in the sense of being commanded and controlled by a central I. They are simply sankhara, mental formations, arising and passing away according to their own internal logic. Do the same with your feelings. When a feeling of peace arises, or perhaps a feeling of restlessness, simply note it. Peace is here. Restlessness is here. See it as a temporary weather pattern in the emotional landscape, not as my feeling, something you need to either cling to or push away. The ultimate goal of this practice is not to find something tangible, some hidden truth, but rather to notice the absence of something, the absence of a solid, independent self, rigidly controlling the show, orchestrating the symphony of your experience. Another powerful practice is to actively question the persistent sense of I. Throughout your day, when the thought I want this, or I am angry, or I need to do that arises in your mind, gently pause and ask yourself, who is this I? Look for it. Can you pinpoint its location in your body? Can you find it nestled within your thoughts? This gentle, repeated inquiry begins to loosen the unconscious assumption that there is a fixed self permanently at the helm, steering the ship of your being. You begin to see that I is more of a convenient label, a pronoun that we use to organize our experience, rather than an accurate description of a real, enduring entity. Finally, cultivate the practice of seeing the interconnectedness of all things. When you eat a piece of fruit, take a moment to reflect on all the conditions that brought it to you. Consider the sun that provided the energy for its growth, the rain that nourished it, the fertile earth that sustained it, the farmer who nurtured it, and the person who transported it. See that the fruit is not a separate, isolated thing, but a manifestation of the entire universe, a microcosm of interconnectedness. Then apply this same understanding to yourself. Your thoughts, your beliefs, and even your very language have been shaped by your parents, your culture, and your education. Your physical body is sustained by the food, water, and air of the planet. When you begin to perceive this deep interdependence, the illusion of a separate, isolated self begins to dissolve, revealing the fundamental truth that you are not a lonely island, adrift in a vast and indifferent sea. You are a wave in the great ocean of being, inseparable from the whole. This profound realization that the separate self is, in essence, an illusion naturally leads us to our next exploration, the teaching of dependent origination, or paticca. This beautiful and profound doctrine illuminates the very fabric of reality, revealing that nothing, absolutely nothing, exists entirely on its own. Everything arises in dependence on other factors, like intricate cogs in a vast and complex machine. Every object, every person, every thought, and every moment is a convergence of countless causes and conditions, interwoven into an intricate tapestry of existence. Seeing this fundamental truth doesn't merely change how we think, it dissolves the very roots of alienation and loneliness, giving rise to a deep and unshakable compassion for all beings. There is a teaching story told of a solitary monk named Sela, who retreated to a remote cave high in the mountains to deepen his meditation practice. He yearned to find a peace that was entirely his own, untouched by the messiness and noise of the external world. He firmly believed that by isolating himself completely, he could achieve a state of pure and independent enlightenment. For his daily sustenance, he received a single bowl of rice, which a kind villager would silently leave at the mouth of his cave each morning. One day, as he prepared to eat, he gazed intently at the small white grains nestled within his bowl. His teacher's words echoed in his mind. Look deeply at any one thing, and you will see the whole universe. Selah decided to put this teaching to the test. He focused his entire attention on a single grain of rice, determined to unravel its secrets. At first, he saw only a tiny white object, seemingly insignificant. But as his mind grew still and focused, his vision deepened, penetrating beyond the surface. He saw the farmer who had planted the rice seed, his back bent under the relentless heat of the sun, his hands calloused from years of dedicated labor. He saw the rich, dark earth that had lovingly nourished the seed, and the life-giving monsoon rains that had watered it, rains that had traveled as clouds from a distant ocean, carried by unseen winds. He saw the sun, a fiery star millions of miles away, whose radiant light was absolutely essential for the rice stalk to grow and thrive. He saw the people who had harvested the rice, those who had milled it, and the one who had painstakingly transported it to the bustling marketplace. He saw the kind villager who, with an act of quiet generosity, had cooked the rice and brought it to his secluded cave, offering him nourishment and sustenance. He saw the skilled potter who had crafted his simple clay bowl in the raging fire that had hardened it, making it durable and able to hold its precious contents. He continued looking, his vision deepening, and saw that the farmer could not have toiled in the fields without the food he ate, which was, in turn, grown by other farmers, creating a chain of interdependence that stretched across the land. The rain could not have formed without the vast expanse of the ocean, and the ocean could not exist without the countless rivers that flowed into its depths. Everything, he realized with startling clarity, was inextricably connected, woven together in an intricate web of cause and effect. His simple bowl of rice contained within it the sun, the clouds, the earth, and the tireless labor and quiet kindness of countless people, reaching across vast distances and spanning generations. It was, in essence, a universe in miniature, a reflection of the interconnectedness of all things. In that profound moment, Selah's feeling of isolation shattered into a million pieces, like glass struck by a hammer. His long and arduous quest for a separate, independent peace suddenly seemed utterly absurd, a fool's errand. He realized, with a jolt of understanding, that even here in his remote cave, far removed from the hustle and bustle of society, he was not, and could never be, truly alone. He was deeply, inextricably connected to everything and everyone, bound by invisible threads of cause and effect. His nourishment, his physical body, and even his very breath were precious gifts from the world he had been trying so desperately to leave behind. He bowed deeply to the humble bowl of rice, not merely as a monk receiving a meal, but as a man receiving the entire universe, acknowledging its boundless generosity and interconnectedness. His heart, once closed off in the relentless pursuit of solitary purity, broke open with a profound sense of gratitude and an overwhelming feeling of connection to all of life, dissolving the illusion of separation. Selah's awakening in the cave was a direct, visceral experience of dependent origination, a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. This teaching is often summarized in a deceptively simple phrase: when this is, that is. When this is not, that is not. When this arises, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. It means that nothing possesses a fixed, independent existence, standing alone and separate from the rest of the universe. Everything is a temporary manifestation, a fleeting expression of an infinite web of causes and conditions, constantly arising and dissolving in an endless dance of interdependence. Just like Selah's seemingly ordinary grain of rice, you in this very moment are a convergence of the entire cosmos, a unique and precious expression of the interconnectedness of all things. The air you are breathing was once the breath of ancient trees, sustaining life for countless generations. The water that flows within your body was once part of a cloud, a river, an ocean, a cycle of life that has continued for millennia. Your thoughts and language have been shaped by generations of ancestors, writers, and thinkers you have never even met, their wisdom and experiences woven into the fabric of your being. The persistent illusion of being a separate self, an isolated individual, is one of the primary sources of our suffering, leading to feelings of profound loneliness, destructive competition, and paralyzing fear. We feel as though we are a fragile me, standing alone against a vast and indifferent world, constantly threatened by forces beyond our control. But dependent origination reveals this perceived boundary to be nothing more than a fiction of the mind, a construct built on faulty assumptions. There is no me that exists separately from the world. You are, in essence, a manifestation of the world itself, an integral part of the intricate tapestry of existence. This profound understanding is the very foundation upon which true compassion is built. When you truly see this fundamental interconnectedness, you realize that the well-being of others is inseparable from your own. Their joy is your joy, and their suffering is your suffering, because you are all part of the same web of life. When someone acts out of anger or greed, you no longer see a fundamentally bad person, someone inherently evil. Instead, you see a being who is tragically caught in a web of painful causes and conditions, perhaps a history of trauma, a legacy of misunderstanding, or a crippling burden of fear. Your knee-jerk judgment softens into a heartfelt wish for them to be free from that suffering, for them to find peace and liberation. This does not, of course, mean that you condone harmful actions or excuse destructive behavior. It simply means that you choose to act from a place of clarity and unwavering compassion, rather than from a place of reactivity and hatred, understanding that hurting another is, in a very real sense, hurting yourself, damaging the intricate web of which you are both a part. This transformative teaching also reveals the profound power of our own actions. Because everything is so intricately connected, every thought, every word, and every deed sends ripples out into the universe, affecting the entire web of life in ways that we may never fully comprehend. A small act of kindness, a seemingly insignificant gesture of compassion, may seem inconsequential, but its effects can travel through the web in unexpected and profound ways, touching countless lives and creating a positive cascade of change. Even a single moment of mindful presence, a conscious choice to be fully present in the here and now, can subtly shift the energy not only within you, but also in the space around you, radiating outwards and influencing those with whom you come into contact. We are not merely passive products of external conditions, helplessly swept along by the currents of fate. We are, in fact, active co-creators of the world in every moment, shaping the reality around us through our conscious choices and intentional actions. To bring this deep wisdom of interconnectedness into your heart and make it a living reality, you can practice what the monk Chela discovered in his mountain cave, the art of deep looking. This is not a formal, structured meditation practice, but rather a way of engaging with the world with new eyes, a conscious choice to see beyond the surface and perceive the interconnectedness of all things. Begin with your food. Before you take your next meal, pause for just a moment. Look at the food on your plate and contemplate its long and winding journey to you. Think of the earth that nurtured it, the sun that fueled its growth, the rain that sustained it, and the countless hands that planted, harvested, transported, and prepared it. Silently offer a thought of gratitude for all of these interconnected elements that are now offering you nourishment, sustaining your life. This seemingly simple practice, done regularly and with intention, transforms the act of eating from a mechanical habit into a sacred communion with life, a moment of connection and appreciation. Extend this practice to the objects around you. Look at the chair you are sitting on, the clothes you are wearing, the book you are reading. Contemplate the tree that became the wood, the cotton that became the thread, the minerals that became the ink. Think of the designers who conceived of the object, the factory workers who assembled it, and the truck drivers who transported it across vast distances. See how this seemingly simple object is, in reality, a meeting point for a global network of energy and effort, a testament to the interconnectedness of human endeavor. This practice dissolves the mundane and reveals the miraculous in the ordinary, allowing you to see the extraordinary hidden within the everyday. Perhaps the most challenging and ultimately the most rewarding practice is to apply this deep looking to people, especially those you find difficult or challenging. When you are feeling frustrated or angry with someone, pause, resisting the urge to react impulsively. Instead of focusing solely on their irritating behavior or perceived flaws, try to contemplate the unseen conditions that might have shaped them, the hidden burdens they might be carrying. What might their childhood have been like? What fears or insecurities might be driving their actions? What pressures are they under that you cannot readily see? This is not about excusing their behavior or condoning harmful actions, but about seeing their shared humanity more fully, recognizing their inherent worth, and understanding the complexities of their existence. It is an act of compassion that creates a space for you to respond with wisdom and understanding instead of reacting with anger and resentment. Finally, practice noticing the co-arising in your own experience, the intricate interplay of cause and effect within your own being. Notice how a certain thought can trigger a physical sensation, a tightening in your chest or a fluttering in your stomach. Notice how a lack of sleep affects your mood, making you more irritable or prone to anxiety. Notice how a kind word can change the entire chemistry of your body, releasing tension and filling you with a sense of well-being. See that your inner world is also a complex web of dependent origination, a dynamic interplay of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. By observing these connections without judgment, simply noticing the arising and passing away of experience, you gain a profound understanding of how to skillfully cultivate the causes and conditions for your own peace and well-being and for the well-being of others. Let us pause now, taking a moment to deeply feel the truth of this profound connection. Feel the air entering your lungs, a precious gift from the vast atmosphere, a shared breath that connects you to all living beings. Feel the ground supporting you, a solid and unwavering foundation, a gift from the ancient earth that has sustained life for countless ages. You are held, you are supported, and you are an integral part of this magnificent web of life. If this sense of belonging and interconnectedness brings a sense of peace to your heart, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk, and let us continue to explore these quiet truths together, deepening our understanding and cultivating compassion in our hearts. Having seen that we are not separate, isolated individuals, but rather integral parts of a vast and interconnected flow, we now arrive at a very practical question. How do we navigate this flow with wisdom and grace, finding our way amidst the complexities of life? The Buddha's answer is beautifully elegant and profoundly practical. We walk the middle way. This is not a path of compromise or mediocrity, a lukewarm approach to life that avoids strong commitments. It is, rather, a dynamic and intelligent path of balance, a conscious choice to avoid the two extremes that cause so much suffering, the extreme of unrestrained sensual indulgence and the extreme of harsh self-mortification. It is the path between grasping and aversion, between being too tight and being too loose, finding the sweet spot between rigid control and utter chaos. The middle way is the art of living with wisdom and grace, finding a sacred center in all aspects of our lives, a place of balance and equanimity that allows us to respond to the challenges of life with clarity and compassion. The story of the middle way is, in essence, the story of the Buddha's own life, a journey of self-discovery that led him from the extremes of privilege to the depths of self-denial, and ultimately to the enlightened understanding of balance and moderation. Before his enlightenment, he lived as Prince Siddhartha, surrounded by every imaginable luxury and shielded from all sights of suffering. He had beautiful palaces, exquisite clothes, delicious food, and a retinue of servants catering to his every whim. He lived in the extreme of unrestrained sensual indulgence, constantly chasing happiness through the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Yet, despite having everything that the world could offer, he felt a deep and persistent spiritual emptiness, a gnawing sense that something was fundamentally missing from his life. He realized that this kind of happiness was fragile, dependent on external conditions, and could never lead to lasting peace and fulfillment. Driven by a deep desire to find true and lasting happiness, he made the radical decision to leave the palace and embark on a spiritual quest. He renounced his princely life and swung to the opposite extreme, becoming a wandering ascetic and practicing severe self-denial. He fasted until his ribs showed, slept on beds of thorns, and held his breath for long periods of time, believing that by punishing his body, he could somehow liberate his spirit and attain enlightenment. For 6 long years, he relentlessly pushed his body to the very brink of death, enduring unimaginable hardship and deprivation. But enlightenment stubbornly refused to come. He only became weak, emaciated, and his mind grew clouded, unable to focus on the subtle nuances of spiritual practice. One day, collapsed by a river and close to death, he overheard a musician on a passing boat teaching a student how to properly tune a sitar, a stringed instrument similar to a lute. The string, the musician explained, must not be too tight or it will snap and break. But it also must not be too loose or it will not produce a clear and resonant sound. The perfect note, the musician said, is found only when the string is tuned to just the right tension, finding the delicate balance in the middle. In that moment, Siddhartha had a profound and transformative insight. His entire spiritual search, he realized with a jolt of clarity, had been like tuning that sitar. He had tried the loose string of indulgence, seeking happiness through pleasure and comfort, and he had also tried the tight string of extreme asceticism, seeking liberation through self-denial and punishment. Neither approach had worked, and neither had brought him closer to enlightenment. The path to awakening, he now understood, must lie in the middle, in finding the perfect balance between these two extremes. At that very moment, a village girl named Sujata, seeing his emaciated and weakened state, offered him a bowl of nourishing rice milk, a simple act of kindness that would forever alter the course of his life. His ascetic companions were horrified, believing that he had abandoned the spiritual path and succumbed to worldly temptations. But Siddhartha, guided by his newfound understanding, gratefully accepted the offering. The nourishing food restored his strength, calmed his body, and cleared his mind, allowing him to once again focus on his spiritual practice. With this newfound balance, sitting beneath the Bodhi tree, not too tight and not too loose, he resolved not to move until he had found the truth, until he had attained enlightenment. It was from this place of centered, balanced awareness that he finally achieved enlightenment, becoming the Buddha, the awakened one. The Buddha's own life experience teaches us that the path to lasting peace and fulfillment is not to be found in extremes. Unrestrained indulgence makes the mind dull and agitated, forever chasing after the next fleeting pleasure, never finding lasting satisfaction. Harsh denial, on the other hand, makes the mind tense and resentful, and can often be a subtle form of self-hatred, cleverly disguised as spiritual discipline. The middle way, in contrast, is a path of kindness and wisdom, a path that applies to every aspect of our lives. Consider, for example, our relationship with our physical body. One extreme is to neglect it entirely, feeding it unhealthy food, depriving it of restful sleep, and ignoring its need for exercise and movement. The other extreme is to become obsessively focused on it, striving for an impossible ideal of physical perfection, and punishing it with excessive exercise or overly restrictive diets. The middle way, in this case, is to treat the body with respect, recognizing it as a precious vehicle for our spiritual journey. It means nourishing it with healthy food, giving it the rest it needs to rejuvenate, and moving it with joy and intention, not with aggression and self-criticism. It's about listening to the body's innate wisdom, respecting its limits, and honoring its needs. The same principle applies to our effort in life, whether it be at work, in our relationships, or in our spiritual practice. Sometimes we push ourselves relentlessly, driven by ambition or fear, until we eventually burn out, exhausted, and depleted. This is the tight string, the extreme of overexertion. At other times, we fall into lethargy and procrastination, avoiding any form of challenge or discomfort and becoming stagnant and unfulfilled. This is the loose string, the extreme of underexertion. The middle way in this context is about cultivating right effort, a balanced and sustainable energy that allows us to work diligently without becoming frantic and to rest intentionally without feeling guilty. It's about knowing when to strive and when to soften, when to push forward and when to gently release, finding the delicate balance between action and stillness. This balance is not a fixed point, a static destination to be reached. It is rather a dynamic dance, a constant process of adjustment and refinement that we learn to feel from moment to moment, guided by our intuition and our deep understanding of the middle way. The middle way also guides our emotional life, helping us to navigate the turbulent waters of our feelings with greater equanimity. We can swing between the extreme of emotional suppression, where we deny or numb our feelings, pushing them down and pretending that they don't exist, and the extreme of emotional indulgence, where we are completely swept away by every mood, losing ourselves in a sea of reactivity and drama. The middle path in this case is the practice of mindfulness. It is the capacity to be fully present with our feelings, whether they be joy, sadness, or anger, without either pushing them away or being consumed by them. We acknowledge the feeling, allowing it to be there, and we watch it with a calm and spacious awareness, just as we would watch the ever changing weather patterns in the sky, observing the clouds as they drift by without clinging to them or trying to control them. This is the art of being neither too tight nor too loose with our own hearts, finding the delicate balance between emotional engagement and detached observation. To walk the middle way is to become a master of the art of living, to cultivate a life that is both fulfilling and sustainable, grounded in wisdom and compassion. It is a path that requires constant awareness and gentle self correction, a willingness to learn from our mistakes and to adjust our course as needed. The first practical step on this path is to cultivate the quality of listening inward, paying attention to the subtle signals of our bodies and minds. Before you eat, ask your body, what do I truly need for nourishment? What will truly make me feel good and energized? Before you take on another project, ask yourself, do I have the energy for this right now, or do I need to rest and recharge? Before you react in a heated conversation, ask your heart, what is the most balanced and kind response here? What will truly lead to healing and understanding? This inner listening is your compass for the middle way, guiding you towards a life of greater balance and fulfillment. It moves you from living by rigid rules and external expectations to responding with flexible wisdom and heartfelt compassion. Another helpful practice is to become consciously aware of your own patterns of extremism, noticing the areas in your life where you tend to swing too far in one direction or another. Do you tend to be too hard on yourself, setting impossibly high standards and constantly criticizing your own efforts? Or do you tend to be too lenient, letting yourself off the hook too easily and avoiding challenges that might push you to grow? Do you push yourself to burnout, working tirelessly without taking adequate breaks? Or do you shy away from effort, avoiding any form of discomfort and procrastinating on tasks that feel difficult? Simply notice your tendencies without judgment, observing your patterns with curiosity and self compassion. Awareness itself is the first and most crucial step towards finding a more balanced and sustainable approach to life. For example, if you notice that you have a tendency towards harsh self criticism, a tight mind that is constantly judging and evaluating your performance, you can consciously practice self compassion, intentionally cultivating kindness and understanding towards yourself. When the inner critic arises, you can gently soften your self talk and say to yourself, it's okay. I am doing my best. I am learning and growing, and I deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. If you notice a tendency towards procrastination, a loose mind that struggles to focus and follow through on tasks, you can practice taking one small, gentle step towards your goal, breaking down the task into smaller, more manageable pieces, and focusing on making just a little bit of progress each day. Practice with your spiritual life as well, applying the principles of the middle way to your meditation practice and your overall approach to spiritual growth. There will be days when meditation feels easy and blissful, when your mind is calm and focused, and when you experience deep states of peace and tranquility. There will also be other days when your mind is restless and agitated, when you can barely sit still for a minute, and when the practice feels frustrating and unproductive. The middle way is to show up consistently with kindness and patience, regardless of what the experience is like. Don't grasp for the blissful states, clinging to them and trying to replicate them. And don't despair when the practice feels difficult, giving up and abandoning your efforts. Simply offer your gentle attention for 5 minutes or for an hour or for whatever amount of time feels right for you in that moment. The value is in the intention, the gentle, balanced effort, not in the outcome. Finally, remember the metaphor of the sitar string and use it as a guiding principle throughout your day. Throughout your day, you can check in with yourself periodically and ask, am I too tight or too loose right now? Am I holding on too tightly to my plans and expectations? Or am I being too lax and undisciplined in my efforts? This question can apply to your posture, your breathing, your grip on a steering wheel, or your attitude towards a problem. Often, you will find that you are holding on too tightly, tensing your muscles and constricting your breath. In that moment, you can consciously breathe out, releasing the tension and softening your grip, letting go of the need to control everything. This constant gentle retuning, this continuous process of adjustment and refinement, is the essence of the practice of the middle way. It is how we create beautiful music with our lives, finding harmony and balance in the midst of chaos and change. Let's pause now and breathe into this sense of balance, finding our center in the midst of the swirling currents of life. Feel your breath, not forced or strained, not shallow or restricted, but just right, flowing freely and naturally. Feel your body, not rigid or tense, not slumped or collapsed, but gracefully present, grounded and at ease. This is the middle way, the path of balance and equanimity. It is a place of peace and serenity, a refuge from the storms of life. If finding this center speaks to you, if you resonate with the wisdom of the middle way, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk and let us walk this balanced path together, supporting each other on our journey towards greater peace and fulfillment. From this place of balance, grounded in wisdom and equanimity, we can now open our hearts fully, extending our compassion to all beings. The wisdom teachings of Buddhism are often compared to one wing of a bird, providing the clarity of understanding that guides our actions. Compassion, then, is the other wing, providing the motivation and the energy to act in ways that benefit ourselves and others. Both wings are needed to fly. Both wisdom and compassion are essential for a life of true fulfillment. We now turn our attention to the practice of metta, often translated as loving kindness, but perhaps more accurately described as unconditional goodwill. This is not a sentimental or passive feeling, a fleeting emotion that arises and disappears without our conscious control. It is, rather, the active and intentional cultivation of unconditional goodwill, a radiant warmth that we can learn to extend to ourselves, to others, and to all of life, regardless of circumstances. Metta is a powerful antidote to anger, resentment, fear, and self-criticism, the negative emotions that often cloud our judgment and prevent us from acting with kindness and compassion. It is the practice of tending to the garden of the heart, carefully weeding out the negative emotions and cultivating the seeds of kindness so that compassion can bloom and flourish. In a small monastery nestled deep within a forest, there lived a monk named Vimal, a young man who was diligent in his studies and disciplined in his meditation, dedicated to the pursuit of enlightenment. But his heart was, unfortunately, hard, closed off from the warmth of human connection. He was quick to find fault in the other monks, noticing their shortcomings and judging their actions with a critical eye. One monk, he thought, was too loud and disruptive, disturbing the peace of the monastery. Another was too lazy and unproductive, shirking his responsibilities and neglecting his duties. A third was too proud and arrogant, boasting about his accomplishments and seeking the praise of others. Most of all, however, he was incredibly harsh with himself, subjecting himself to a constant barrage of internal criticism. Every perceived mistake in his practice, every moment of weakness or distraction was met with a torrent of self-reproach, filling him with shame and guilt. His mind had become a battlefield, a constant struggle against his own perceived imperfections, and he was becoming increasingly exhausted and bitter, his spirit withering under the weight of his own relentless judgment. One day, his teacher, a gentle old master known for his boundless compassion and unwavering wisdom, called him into his small, sparsely furnished room. Vimal resisted. "How can empty repetition change anything?" he challenged. "I need more discipline, not less." The master's voice remained a calm balm. "The hardness in your heart is your lack of discipline. Just do as I say." Reluctantly, Vimal began the practice. For days he felt utterly foolish, the phrases escaping through gritted teeth, his mind a whirlwind of protest. Happy? I am miserable. Peaceful? I am at war. Kindness felt like a foreign country, replaced by the bitter landscape of irritation. Yet he had given his word. Then a shift. One day walking, he noticed a small deer, its leg caught in thorns. The mother's tender care for her injured fawn sparked something faint and warm within Vimal. Repeating, "May I be happy," felt for the first time less like a complete lie. He persisted. Details emerged: sunlight painting the leaves, the earthy perfume of the forest floor, the murmur of a distant stream. Another day, he witnessed a fellow monk stumble, firewood scattering. Instinct screamed judgment. Clumsy fool. But a new, unbidden thought arose. May he be at ease. It was a whisper, yet it was there. He helped gather the wood, meeting the monk's eyes with a genuine, unfamiliar smile. His practice continued, focused on himself. May I be happy. May I be at peace. The words flowed smoother, less forced. He tasted a sliver of the peace he wished for. He realized he'd treated himself as an enemy for years. This was the first act of active kindness toward himself. The hardness in his heart, like a frozen river touched by spring, began to thaw. The master found him by the stream, the stone discarded, his gaze lost in the water's dance. Vimal's face held a newfound softness, his eyes clear. "The field is no longer parched, is it?" the master inquired gently. Vimal bowed, his heart overflowing with quiet gratitude. "No, master," he replied. "The rain has finally come." Vimal's story illuminates metta practice, a mental alchemy that transforms anger, judgment, and fear. Like a farmer cultivating fertile ground, the Buddha taught we can nurture our hearts, growing love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Loving kindness is foundational, a sincere wish for well-being without expectation of return, unconditional and boundless. Crucially, the practice begins with oneself. This isn't selfish. We can't pour from an empty cup. Many find it easier to feel kindness for others, yet harbor a harsh inner critic. Directing loving kindness inward is often the hardest, most vital step, a radical act of self-acceptance and compassion, healing the wounds that cause us to lash out. When we cradle ourselves with tenderness, patience, and understanding for others, blossom. The practice expands. After establishing self-compassion, we bring to mind a loved one, someone radiating warmth, extending the same wishes. Then a neutral person, a shopkeeper, a bus driver, stretching our capacity beyond our inner circle. The most challenging step, loving kindness for a difficult person, someone triggering conflict or resentment. This isn't condoning their actions or forcing affection, but releasing the poison of anger for our sake, recognizing their shared humanity and wishing them freedom from the suffering driving their harmful behavior. Finally, the practice encompasses all beings, everywhere, dissolving the barriers of us and them, connecting us to the web of life with universal love. Metta is more than meditation. It's a way of life, transforming how we speak, listen, and act. To cultivate loving kindness, no stone or forest path is needed, just a quiet moment and a willing heart. Find a comfortable, undisturbed position. Close your eyes if desired. Gently focus on yourself, perhaps placing a hand on your heart as a gesture of warmth. Silently repeat phrases of loving kindness. May I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. Repeat them gently, like an inner lullaby. Don't force emotion. The intention is key. If your mind wanders, guide it back. If feelings of unworthiness or resistance arise, acknowledge them with kindness, even saying, "May you also be at peace." After time with yourself, bring to mind a good friend, someone kind. Envision their presence, then shift the phrases, "May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease." Feel the natural warmth flow with the words. Carry this practice into daily life. In line at a store, silently offer metta to the person ahead. Hearing an ambulance, send wishes of safety and healing. Reading difficult news, extend peace to all affected, transforming passive observation into active compassion. Be patient. Like learning an instrument, it takes time and effort. Some days the heart feels open, others, closed. That's okay. Show up, water the seed of kindness, and trust your inner landscape will bloom with a warmth, embracing yourself and the world with unshakable love. As loving kindness permeates our being, it melts away judgment and fear, revealing our true nature. The Buddhist tradition offers an encouraging idea. Our fundamental awareness is inherently pure, luminous, and clear. The Buddha described the natural state of mind as a clear sky. Thoughts, emotions, and memories are passing clouds. No matter how dark the storm, no matter how fierce the winds, they can never stain the sky itself, which remains vast and peaceful. This shifts perspective, inviting us not to create peace, but to uncover the peace already present beneath the turbulence of our minds. There's an Eastern story about a poor traveler, weary and asleep by the roadside. Defined by his poverty, A patchwork coat offering little protection, a stomach gnawing with hunger, a mind tangled with worry. He saw the world through a lens of lack, seeing himself as its victim. While he slept, a wealthy merchant, a dear friend, passed by. Seeing his suffering, pity filled his heart. The merchant possessed a priceless diamond, flawless and radiant. He wanted to end his friend's suffering forever. Not wanting to wake him, he carefully sewed the diamond into the inner hem of the traveler's coat, offering a silent blessing before continuing. The traveler awoke later, stretched his aching limbs, and felt the familiar pang of hunger, unaware of his newfound fortune. He continued begging for food and shelter, his suffering a constant companion, cursing his fate and envying the wealthy, never knowing the treasure that could end his troubles. The diamond, hidden and forgotten, traveled with him through dust and rain, its light obscured. Years later, he crossed paths with the merchant, who was shocked to see him still in misery. "My friend," he cried, astonished, "what have you been doing? Why are you still living like this? I gave you a priceless jewel years ago." The traveler looked bewildered. "You gave me nothing," he mumbled, his voice resigned. The merchant knelt, took the hem of the coat, and carefully cut the threads. The diamond fell into his palm, exploding with light. The traveler stared, speechless. He had been rich all along, but lived in poverty, unaware of the treasure he possessed. This is an allegory for our human condition. The Buddha taught that within each of us, sewn into our very being, is a Buddha nature as pure, brilliant, and indestructible as that diamond, our innate capacity for wisdom, compassion, and peace. This core cannot be damaged by trauma, stained by mistakes, or diminished by confusion. It is always there, whole and complete. Like the traveler, we don't know it. We identify with our worn coat, our anxious thoughts, our stormy emotions, our self-critical stories. I am an anxious person. I am unworthy. I am broken. We live in self-imposed spiritual poverty, unaware of the wealth within. The spiritual path isn't about becoming better or acquiring a diamond we lack, but realizing it's already ours. It's turning inward and recognizing the luminous knowing quality of awareness present all along, witnessing every moment. This awareness is the silent witness, the part of you aware you're thinking, but not the thoughts themselves, the part feeling sadness, but not the sadness itself, the calm presence holding the ever-changing contents of your life. Recognizing this nature is profoundly healing, the ultimate act of self-love and acceptance. You don't have to fix yourself. You're not a problem to be solved, but a treasure to be discovered. The work isn't becoming different, but gently removing the layers of mud, conditioning, fear, and mistaken identity hiding the brilliance of your heart. This optimistic view suggests that our obscurations, greed, hatred, and delusion are like clouds, not the sky itself, temporary and dispellable. Our true nature is the clear, open sky. To experience this luminous nature is to shift from frantic doing to restful being, requiring less effort, more trust, recognizing the sky behind the clouds. One direct practice is paying attention to the spaces between things. Sit quietly, focus on your breath, becoming interested in the brief pause after exhalation, before the next inhalation. In that gap, there's pure stillness. No thought, no effort, just quiet, alert presence. Rest your attention in that stillness, even for a second. It's a doorway, a glimpse into your mind's spacious nature. Practice listening to the silence. Find a quiet place and listen. At first, you'll hear external sounds, but can you listen underneath them, aware of the vast field of silence holding them? That silence isn't empty, it's vibrant, full presence, the canvas upon which all sounds are painted. Your awareness is like that silence, holding the noise of your mind without being disturbed. Rest as that silent, listening presence. Another practice, gently ask yourself throughout the day, who is aware? When seeing a tree, hearing a sound, or thinking a thought, turn the question back on itself. What is this knowing quality? Don't look for a verbal answer. Feel into the direct experience of awareness itself. It has no color, shape, or location, but is undeniably present, the light by which you experience your entire life. By turning your attention to this inner light, you identify with it more than the fleeting objects it illuminates. Finally, trust this underlying goodness, especially when you feel at your worst. When you make a mistake or feel overwhelmed, instead of self-criticism, remind yourself of the diamond in your coat. Place a hand on your heart and say, "Beneath this confusion, my nature is pure. Beneath this sadness, my heart is whole." This isn't positive thinking, but trusting your deepest nature, remembering that no matter how worn the coat, the jewel within remains perfectly, brilliantly, and beautifully intact. Let us pause. Feel the quiet presence listening to these words, not the ears, but the awareness behind them. This is your home ground, the source of peace. If resting in this quiet space feels like coming home, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk. Let us continue to rediscover this inner treasure together, to uncover the luminous mind within. To find the diamond, we need a clear and steady tool, mindfulness. While touched upon, it's so central it deserves deeper exploration. Mindfulness, or sati, is intentionally paying attention to the present moment without judgment, waking up from compulsive thinking, and arriving fully in our lives as they unfold. It's paired with concentration, or samadhi, the ability to keep our attention stable and collected. Mindfulness and concentration are the two wings of a bird, allowing us to soar into the clear sky of our awareness. Imagine a skilled archer preparing to shoot. The crowd murmurs, the wind blows, and the memory of a previous miss tugs at her mind. Yet, to succeed, she must bring her entire being into this moment. Her breath must be deep and steady, her body relaxed yet firm, her gaze soft yet unwavering. If her mind drifts, tension will enter her arm, and the arrow will fly untrue. If she becomes anxious, her focus will blur. Her power comes from channeling all her energy into a single point of unshakable presence. In the moment of release, there is no archer, no target, no past, no future, only the flight of the arrow. That state of collected mindful awareness is what we cultivate. Most of the time, our minds are scattered. We drive while replaying arguments, eat lunch while composing emails, converse with loved ones while lost in a labyrinth of worry. We are rarely fully present, living in a mental simulation, robbed of the richness of the present moment, fueling anxiety with problems long over or not yet happened. Mindfulness is waking up from this dream, anchoring our attention in the tangible reality of the now. The practice is the heart of Buddhist meditation, allowing us to see the workings of our own mind with clarity rather than being tossed about by them. When mindful, you see your thoughts as just thoughts, mental events like clouds, not absolute truths. You can observe anger arise and simply note, anger is here, creating a crucial gap of awareness, a sacred pause where you can choose to respond with wisdom rather than react with blind habit, untangling ourselves from destructive patterns. Mindfulness is also profoundly kind, paying attention without judgment. We are often our harshest critics. When we try to meditate, our minds might say, "You're doing this wrong. You can't even sit still. You're a failure." A mindful response is to see that self-criticism and meet it with gentleness, simply noting, judging is here, and then guiding your attention back to your breath. Every time you do this, you are performing an act of profound self-compassion. As mindfulness strengthens, so does concentration. A mindful mind is a collected mind. Just as the archer gathers all her energy, the meditator learns to gather their attention onto a single object, most commonly the breath. As the attention becomes more stable, the monkey mind begins to calm down, like letting a jar of muddy water sit undisturbed. The mud of restless thoughts gradually settles and the water of the mind becomes transparent and still. In this state of clear, concentrated awareness, deep insights can arise spontaneously. We begin to see the truth of impermanence, non-self, and interconnectedness not as philosophical ideas, but as visceral realities. This is why mindfulness and concentration are the path to wisdom, master tools we use to explore and liberate our own minds. The foundational practice is mindfulness of breathing, or anapanasati. You can practice this anywhere, but it's helpful to find a quiet place where you can sit undisturbed. Find a posture embodying dignity and ease, on a cushion or in a chair with your feet flat on the ground. The key is an upright spine, fostering alertness, and a relaxed body, fostering calm. You can close your eyes gently or keep them. Gently initiate the practice with eyes softly lowered. Begin by drawing in 3 deliberate, deep breaths, and with each exhale, consciously release any tension held within your body or mind. Allow your breath to then find its own natural cadence, free from your control or manipulation. Simply permit your body to breathe, guided by its innate wisdom. Now, select a focal point to anchor your awareness. A common and effective spot is the tip of your nostrils, where you can discern the subtle dance of cool air entering and slightly warmer air departing. Another beneficial point is the abdomen, Attune to the gentle rise accompanying each inhalation and the subsequent fall upon exhalation. Settle upon one of these anchors and simply rest your attention there, feeling the raw, unfiltered sensation of the breath. Inevitably, your mind will wander. It will meander into planning future events, revisiting past memories, indulging in worries, or crafting elaborate fantasies. This is not an error nor a sign of failure. It is merely the inherent nature of an untrained mind. The very instant you become aware that your mind has drifted is, in itself, a moment of triumph, a moment of mindfulness. With gentleness and kindness, free from self criticism, acknowledge the path your mind has taken, be it dwelling on anxieties or lost in thought. Then, like a loving parent guiding a wandering child back home, tenderly redirect your attention back to the sensations of your breath. This act of noticing the distraction and gently returning is the core exercise, strengthening the very muscles of mindfulness. Each time you guide your mind back, you are cultivating both mindfulness and concentration. That is the essence of the practice. Simple, yet not always easy. The key lies in the quality of your attitude, gentle, patient, and infinitely kind towards yourself. You can extend mindfulness into your daily activities through the practice of informal mindfulness. As you wash dishes, endeavor to simply wash dishes. Feel the water's warmth against your skin, observe the iridescent shimmer of the soap bubbles, and listen to the gentle clinking of the plates. When walking from your car to your office, sense the contact of your feet with the ground and notice the movement of your body through space. When listening to a loved one, offer the invaluable gift of your undivided attention. Listen not only to their words, but also to the emotions and needs underlying them. Release the urge to rehearse your response and simply be present for them. These moments of informal practice are as vital as formal seated meditation. They are the threads with which we weave presence into the very fabric of our lives, transforming the mundane into the sacred. Let us pause here momentarily. Bring your awareness to your own breath right now. Feel one complete inhalation and one complete exhalation. You are here. You are present. This moment is a gift. If this simple return to presence resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk, ensuring this sanctuary is always accessible when you seek solace. As we cultivate presence through mindfulness, we begin to perceive our patterns of clinging with startling clarity. We witness how we grasp at ideas, expectations, identities, and pleasures, and even at our own pain. This realization leads to a pivotal practice on the path to peace, the wisdom of letting go. In Buddhism, this is often linked to the concept of nekkhamma, which can be interpreted as renunciation or, more helpfully, as non-attachment. This doesn't necessitate a cold, joyless asceticism, relinquishing all possessions and relationships. Rather, it signifies a profound and liberating internal shift, the wise and compassionate release of our mental and emotional grip on things, allowing life to unfold without our constant interference, management, and control. It is the realization that true freedom lies not in acquiring more, but in needing less. A powerful parable beautifully illustrates this principle. A man journeyed through a perilous wilderness and arrived at a wide, treacherous river, fraught with unseen currents and dangers. There was neither bridge nor boat. Staying put was equally dangerous due to the wild animals roaming the land. Driven by ingenuity and effort, he gathered logs, sturdy branches, and tough vines. With painstaking labor, he constructed a simple but effective raft. He launched the raft into the water, and using a piece of wood as a paddle, he navigated the perilous currents and safely reached the opposite shore. Overwhelmed with relief and gratitude for the raft that had saved his life, he stood on the bank of safety and peace, gazing back at the raft bobbing gently in the shallows. He mused to himself, "This raft was invaluable to me. I put so much effort into it. It would be wasteful to leave it behind. I might need it again later." So he hoisted the heavy, waterlogged, cumbersome raft onto his back and continued his journey inland. The other shore was a beautiful land of open meadows and rolling hills, but the man could barely appreciate it. He struggled and sweated under the immense weight of the raft, unable to walk freely through fields of wildflowers. The raft snagged on trees in the forest, preventing him from scaling hills to behold the magnificent views. The very thing that had once been his instrument of liberation had become a terrible burden, a self-imposed prison. The Buddha used this story to ask his disciples, what would a wise person do? A wise person, he explained, would understand the raft's purpose. They would feel gratitude, acknowledge its immense value, and then leave it at the riverbank, continuing their journey light, unburdened, and free. The raft, the Buddha clarified, symbolizes teachings, practices, and even our most cherished insights. They are skillful means to transport us from the shore of suffering to the shore of liberation, but they are not meant to be clung to as rigid dogmas or shiny new identities. Even the most profound teaching can become a burden if we grasp it too tightly. This story extends to everything in our lives. We construct rafts of all kinds, our accomplishments, careers, relationships, beliefs, and spiritual practices. These rafts can be useful for a time, but if we cling to them, making them a fixed part of our identity, they cease to be tools for liberation and become heavy burdens, hindering our progress. The wisdom of letting go is the natural consequence of recognizing impermanence and non-self. If everything is in constant flux, what is there to hold on to? If there is no solid, separate self, who is doing the holding? Attachment is the attempt to establish a solid, permanent home in a fundamentally fluid and ever-changing world, a recipe for constant struggle and disappointment. We become attached to specific outcomes, believing our happiness hinges on things unfolding in a particular way. This attachment breeds rigidity and fear. We become attached to people, loving them not with open hands, but with a clenched fist of possession, control, and expectation, ultimately suffocating the love it seeks to protect. We become attached to our opinions and beliefs, transforming them into fortresses, creating conflict with those who perceive the world differently. We even, paradoxically, become attached to our own suffering. Our pain can become so familiar that it forms the core of our identity. We repeatedly narrate our stories of victimhood or trauma, and the prospect of letting go of that narrative feels terrifying, as if we would no longer know who we are without it. Letting go is the practice of consciously, gently, and repeatedly loosening the clenched fist of the mind. It is not an act of cold indifference or spiritual bypassing, pretending not to care to avoid pain. On the contrary, letting go stems from deep love and profound trust. You can love someone more fully and freely when you are not attached to them, behaving in a certain way to ensure your happiness. You can engage with your work more creatively and joyfully when you are not desperately fixated on a specific outcome. You can hold your beliefs more lightly, allowing you to listen to others with a genuinely open heart. Non-attachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring so deeply that you are willing to release your ego's agenda and allow life and others to be as they are. It is a profound trust in the universe's unfolding. This is particularly crucial in our spiritual lives. We can become attached to a particular meditation technique, a teacher, or a blissful experience. We might have a wonderful meditation one day and spend weeks attempting to replicate it, generating nothing but frustration and tension. The raft parable reminds us to hold our practices lightly. They are tools. Use them skillfully, but don't turn them into possessions. The goal is not to become a good meditator, but to be free. How do we cultivate this profound art of letting go in our daily lives? It begins with noticing the feeling of clinging. Attachment possesses a distinct physical and mental signature, a tightening, a tension, a clenching, a sensation of holding your breath, of holding on for dear life. When you recognize this feeling arising in response to a situation, you can initiate the practice. One potent technique involves a releasing visualization. When you feel yourself clinging to a worry, resentment, or expectation, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine placing that thought or feeling in the palm of your hand. Regard it with kindness, acknowledging its presence without judgment. Then, visualize yourself gently opening your hand, allowing the wind to carry it away. Alternatively, imagine placing it on a leaf in a stream and watching it float peacefully out of sight. Repeat this process as often as necessary. This is a way of training the mind in the physical sensation and the emotional intention of release. Journaling can also be a valuable tool for working with deeper attachments. Create a list of things to which you notice you are attached, whether major, a career goal or a relationship dynamic, or minor, the need for a perfectly tidy house. Then, for each item, write about the underlying fear. What do you fear will happen if you let go? Clearly seeing the underlying fear often diminishes its power. Next, write about how freedom might feel on the other side of that attachment. This process brings conscious, compassionate awareness to our unconscious patterns of clinging. Perhaps the most accessible and continuous practice is working with your breath. The breath is a perfect living model of letting go. With each inhalation, you take in, and with each exhalation, you must release to make room for the next. You cannot hold on to an exhalation. When you feel tight, stressed, and attached, bring your full focus to your exhalation. With each exhale, consciously practice letting go. You can even silently repeat the words release or let go as you breathe out. Let each exhale be a small letting go of control, a small surrender to the present moment, a small act of trust in life. This gentle, repeated practice of release, woven into the moments of your day, is how you learn to unburden yourself from the heavy raft and walk freely, lightly, and peacefully on the other shore. The wisdom of letting go is the natural result of seeing impermanence and non-self. If everything is changing, what is there to hold on to? If there is no solid separate self, who is it that is doing the holding? Attachment is the attempt to make a solid and permanent home in a world that is fluid and ever-changing, a recipe for constant struggle and disappointment. Letting go is the practice of consciously, gently, and repeatedly loosening the clenched fist of the mind. It is a profound trust in the unfolding of the universe. It is how you learn to unburden yourself from the heavy raft and walk freely, lightly, and peacefully on the other shore. Let us pause here one last time before bringing our journey to a close. Take a slow, deep breath in, feeling the stillness of this moment, and as you breathe out, let go of any effort. Simply rest. If this path has been a refuge for you, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk, ensuring this sanctuary is always available when you need to return to the quiet. Now, as we near the end of our journey together, we venture into a teaching often considered the deepest and most profound in the Buddhist tradition, the wisdom of emptiness, or shunyata. The word emptiness can sound frightening or nihilistic, suggesting that nothing matters or exists. However, this is a misunderstanding. In Buddhism, emptiness does not signify non-existence. It means empty of a separate, independent, or intrinsic self. It is the ultimate expression of the interconnectedness we have already explored, the radical truth that everything is what it is only because of everything else. This insight is the final solvent, dissolving our most stubborn attachments and fears, revealing a reality that is vibrant, miraculous, and fundamentally free. There is a story of a young monk, Anatta, deeply troubled by the teaching of emptiness. He would sit and listen to the discourses, but his mind would rebel. How can my hand be empty? He would think, holding it up. I can see it, I can feel it, it is solid, it is here. He perceived the world as a collection of separate, solid entities, and the teaching of emptiness felt like a denial of his own experience. His teacher, a wise old nun named Prajna, recognized his struggle. One day, she handed him a simple clay cup. Tell me about this cup, she said. Anatta described it. It is made of clay, it is hard, it has a handle, it holds water. Prajna smiled. But where is the cupness? She asked. Let us look for it. Is the clay the cup? No, Anatta replied. The clay was once just earth. Is the water in the cup the cup? No, that is separate. Is the shape the cup? The shape was given by the potter's hands and the potter's mind. She then guided him in deep contemplation. This cup, she said, is made entirely of non-cup elements. To exist, it needs the clay. The clay needed the earth and the water. The water needed the clouds and the rain. The potter needed food to have the strength to work, and that food came from the sun and the soil. This cup is full of the entire universe. It is empty of being just a cup, separate from everything else. Its existence is a miracle of interdependence. Anatta looked at the cup with new eyes. He had seen an object. She was showing him a process, a relationship. Prajna then pointed to a great wave cresting on the nearby sea. Look at that wave, she said. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a shape, a height, a power. It is clearly a wave. But can you find anything in that wave that is not the ocean? The wave is empty of a separate self. It is nothing more and nothing less than the ocean waving. It arises from the ocean and will dissolve back into the ocean because it is empty of a separate self. It is full of all the water in the sea. In that instant, Anatta understood. He looked down at his hand again. He saw not a solid, separate object, but a temporary manifestation of the universe. He saw his parents and ancestors in his hand. He saw the sun, the air, the water, and all the food he had ever eaten. His hand was empty of being just his hand, and because of that, it was full of all of life. The fear he felt around the word emptiness dissolved into a feeling of profound connection and awe. The wisdom of emptiness, or shunyata, is the ultimate antidote to our delusion of separateness. We navigate the world, perceiving a solid me and a collection of solid others and things. This perception is the root of clinging as we try to possess these things, and the root of aversion as we try to push them away. Emptiness reveals that the solid lines we draw are illusions created by the mind. In reality, everything co-arises in a seamless, unified field. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form, states the Heart Sutra, one of the most famous Buddhist texts. This means that the form of the wave is inextricably linked to its emptiness of being separate from the ocean. The form of the cup is dependent on its emptiness of a solitary existence. They are not two different things, but two aspects of the same reality. When we understand this, our relationship with life changes dramatically. We cease clinging so tightly because we see that things have no independent essence to grasp. A painful emotion arises. Instead of perceiving it as a solid, terrible thing happening to us, we can see it as a temporary wave of energy arising from countless causes and conditions empty of any solid core. Recognizing its emptiness allows us to be with it without being overwhelmed by it. A moment of great joy arises. Instead of desperately trying to hold on to it, we can savor its beauty, knowing that it too is a transient wave, a gift of the interdependent universe. We can love it without needing to possess it. This is not merely a dry intellectual understanding. It is a felt sense of liberation. When we see the emptiness of all phenomena, we become fearless. What is there to fear losing when nothing was ever a separate, possessible thing in the first place? What fixed self is there to be threatened? Seeing emptiness allows us to dance with life, to engage with it fully, with an open, loving, and spacious heart. We are no longer a frightened ego defending its tiny territory. We become the open space in which the whole dance of life unfolds. To touch this wisdom, we practice deconstructing our experience. This is not as complicated as it seems. It is a subtle shift in perception. Take a moment to look at any object in the room with you. A lamp, a book, a table. Look at it and then begin to mentally break it down into its non-object parts. If it's a wooden table, see the tree, the forest, the sunlight that fed the tree, the rain that watered it, the soil that nourished it. See the logger who cut the tree, the carpenter who shaped the wood, the tools they used, and the people who made the tools. Continue this process until you see that the solid table is actually a meeting point for the entire cosmos. It is empty of being an independent table. This practice can be applied to anything. Contemplate your own body. See that it is made of non-body elements, the food you ate, the water you drank, the air you breathe, the genetic information from your parents and ancestors. See that your body is not yours, but a temporary loan from the universe. This is not to diminish its preciousness, but to enhance it. You can also apply this to your emotions. When a strong feeling like anger arises, instead of identifying with it, investigate it. Where is it in your body? Does it have a solid center? Or is it a collection of changing sensations? Heat in the chest, tension in the jaw, a rush of energy? Notice the thoughts that are feeding it. See that the anger is not a single solid thing. It is a process, a confluence of thoughts and sensations arising due to causes and conditions. When you see it this way, you deconstruct its power. You see its emptiness, and it can no longer command you. The ultimate practice of seeing emptiness is simply to rest in open awareness without labeling or conceptualizing. When you let go of all the stories and judgments, what remains is a direct, vibrant, and luminous reality. In this state, you don't think about emptiness. You are the spacious, open awareness in which the interdependent nature of reality reveals itself moment by moment. This understanding of reality, where everything is interconnected and every action has a consequence, leads us to the crucial teaching of karma. This is perhaps one of the most misunderstood concepts from the East. Karma is not a system of cosmic reward and punishment meted out by an external judge. It is simply the natural law of cause and effect, the truth that our actions, motivated by our intentions, create our world. The word karma literally means action, but the Buddha clarified that the most important element is cetana, or intention. It is the will, the volition, the intention behind the action that plants the seed. This is an incredibly empowering teaching. It means we are not helpless victims of fate. In every moment, we have the power to shape our future by cultivating skillful intentions in the present. Consider the story of two farmers, brothers, who lived side by side. Both were good men who worked hard. One year, a terrible storm swept through the valley and completely flattened their rice paddies just before the harvest. Their entire year's work was destroyed. It was the exact same external event for both of them. The first brother, overwhelmed by the loss, fell into despair. His mind was filled with thoughts of anger and blame. "This is a curse," he shouted at the sky. "Why does this always happen to me? The world is unjust." He grew bitter and resentful. He snapped at his wife and children and refused help from his neighbors, whom he now viewed with suspicion and envy. His intention was rooted in aversion and self-pity. He was planting seeds of isolation, anger, and future suffering for himself and his family. The second brother, looking out at the same devastation, also felt a deep wave of sadness. He allowed himself to feel the loss, but after the initial grief, his intention shifted. He thought, "This has happened. I cannot change the past. What can I do now?" His intention was rooted in acceptance and wisdom. He gathered his family and said, "We have lost our crop, but we still have each other. We have our strength." He went to his neighbors, not with envy, but with an open heart. "We have all suffered from this storm," he said. "Let us work together to clear the fields and prepare for the next planting. Together we are stronger." His intention was rooted in compassion and connection. He was planting seeds of community, resilience, and future happiness. It wasn't the external event itself that determined the outcome, which remained constant, but rather the unfolding of karma, the intention behind the actions and the resulting experience that charted completely different courses. One brother, trapped in a self-made hell of bitterness, became consumed by resentment, while the other, choosing a different path, fostered a community of support, finding solace and strength in shared experience. The teaching of karma isn't a rigid decree of fate. On the contrary, it stands as the ultimate testament to free will, emphasizing that the quality of our lives rests squarely upon our own shoulders, or perhaps more accurately, within the depths of our own hearts and minds. The Buddha elucidated that intentions stemming from the three poisons, greed, hatred, and delusion, invariably lead to actions that inflict suffering upon ourselves and those around us. When our actions are fueled by a grasping desire for more, we sow the seeds of dissatisfaction. Actions born of anger and ill will breed conflict and pain, creating discord in our lives and the lives of others. And when we act from a place of confusion, our vision clouded, we make choices that are ultimately unskillful, inevitably leading to regret. Conversely, intentions rooted in their opposites, generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom, pave the way for actions that cultivate happiness and peace. Generosity fosters connection and joy, strengthening the bonds that unite us. Loving kindness creates harmony and safety, offering refuge from the storms of life. And acting from a place of wisdom and clarity empowers us to make skillful choices that set us on the path toward liberation. This isn't some abstract, metaphysical belief system, divorced from reality. You can witness the law of karma in action in your own life every single day. Simply observe how you feel after lashing out at someone in anger, compared to the feeling that arises after offering a genuine word of kindness. The results are immediate, tangible, undeniable. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this teaching lies in the realization that it's never too late to change course. While your past karma may have shaped your present moment, it does not dictate your future. Your present karma, the intentions you hold right now, is actively creating the future you will inhabit. You are not defined, nor are you condemned by your past actions. In this very moment, you possess the power to plant a new seed, to cultivate a kind thought, to perform a small act of generosity, to respond to a difficult situation with patience instead of reactivity. Each of these choices is a potent karmic act, capable of altering the entire trajectory of your life. It empowers us to break free from the role of passive victims, tossed about by the winds of circumstance, and to become the conscious, loving architects of our own experience. To skillfully navigate the currents of karma, we must cultivate mindfulness in our intentions. A powerful practice is to begin each day with intention setting. Before you even leave your bed or as you savor your first cup of tea, take a moment to set a simple, wholesome intention for the day ahead. It might be, today I will practice patience, or today I will listen with an open heart, or even, today I will be kind to myself. Setting a conscious intention at the start of the day acts like a rudder for your mind, gently guiding your actions in a skillful direction. Throughout the day, practice mindful pauses. Before you speak, before you send that email, before you react to a trigger, take one conscious breath. In that brief pause, check in with your intention. Is what you're about to say or do coming from a place of kindness and clarity, or from a place of fear, anger, or ego? That small gap, that moment of conscious awareness, can be the difference between creating good karma and creating painful karma. At the end of the day, engage in a gentle karma review. This isn't about self-judgment or guilt, it's about compassionate self-reflection. Ask yourself, what were the intentions behind my major actions today? When was I able to act from a place of kindness? When did I get caught in reactivity? The purpose is simply to learn to understand your own patterns more deeply so that you can make wiser choices tomorrow. Finally, practice the karma of generosity, or dana. This doesn't have to involve money. You can be generous with your time, with your listening, with a smile, with a word of encouragement. Every act of giving, no matter how small, when performed with a pure intention of wishing another well, is a powerful way to generate positive karma. It breaks the spell of the self-centered mind and connects us to the joy of our shared humanity. By cultivating mindfulness of our intentions, we transform our life from a series of random, disconnected happenings into a conscious, meaningful, and beautiful path of awakening. And where does this path ultimately lead? What is the final shore that the raft was built to reach? In Buddhism, the ultimate goal, the fruition of the entire path, is called nirvana. This, too, is a word often misunderstood. Nirvana isn't a heaven-like paradise that we go to after we die. It's a state of being that's available right here in this very life. The word literally means to extinguish or to blow out. But what is extinguished? The fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. Nirvana is the complete and utter cessation of suffering and its causes. It's the mind's final, unshakable liberation. The experience of profound and lasting peace that arises from seeing reality exactly as it is. Imagine you've been carrying a massive, heavy boulder on your back for your entire life. You've carried it for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to be without it. You assume that the aching in your shoulders and the strain in your legs is simply the normal state of being. The weight dictates how you walk, where you can go, and how you see the world. Every movement is an effort. Then, one day, through diligent practice and insightful understanding, you finally realize that you can put the boulder down. You lean over, and with a great sigh of release, you let it roll off your back and settle onto the earth. In that moment, what do you feel? An indescribable lightness, a freedom you never knew was possible, a profound sense of ease and relief. The air feels different, the light looks brighter, you can stand up straight for the first time, you can run, you can dance. That feeling of relief, of unburdening, of final release, that is a metaphor for nirvana. It's not an escape from life, but the beginning of truly living, free from the crushing weight of our mental burdens. Nirvana is the natural result of seeing the truths we've been exploring. When you truly and deeply realize the truth of impermanence, your clinging to fleeting pleasures is extinguished. When you truly and deeply realize the truth of not self, the ego's desperate projects of self-preservation and self-aggrandizement are extinguished. When you truly and deeply realize the truth of dukkha, suffering, and its cause, your relentless craving is extinguished. The extinguishing of these fires is nirvana. It's not a state of blissful numbness or a blank void. According to the texts, it's a state of supreme happiness, but a happiness that's not dependent on conditions. It's the steady, radiant peace of a mind that's no longer at war with itself or with reality. A person who has realized nirvana still lives in the world. They still experience pleasant and unpleasant sensations. They may feel the heat of the sun or the pain of a stubbed toe, but these experiences no longer create mental suffering. The second arrow of reactivity, the judgment, the story, the resistance, is gone. They meet all of life's experiences with a vast, open, and compassionate equanimity. They are like a deep ocean whose surface may have waves, but whose depths remain profoundly, utterly still. This state is characterized by boundless compassion. Because when one's own suffering has ceased, the heart naturally turns toward the suffering of all other beings who are still caught in the fire. You cannot achieve nirvana through willpower, just as you cannot force a flower to bloom by pulling on its petals. It's the natural unfolding that occurs when you diligently and patiently cultivate the path. The practice for realizing nirvana is the path itself. The application is to trust the process. The way to the other shore is to continue using the raft skillfully. Therefore, the final practice is simply this: to continue to practice mindfulness, bringing your attention back to the present moment again and again. To continue to practice compassion, watering the seeds of kindness for yourself and others. To continue to investigate the nature of your experience, seeing the truth of impermanence and not self. To continue to practice letting go, loosening your grip on all the things that cause you stress. Each mindful breath, each kind thought, each moment of seeing clearly is a step on the path. There is no magic formula. The path is the goal. Trust that by simply tending to your own heart and mind with gentle, persistent care, you are creating the causes and conditions for your own liberation. The final practice is to rest in the possibility of this freedom, to know that a state of peace beyond all understanding is not just a myth, but the inherent potential of your own mind. Let this knowledge be a source of inspiration and courage on your journey. You're not just trying to feel a little better, you're on a path that leads to the complete and total end of suffering. Now, let us conclude our journey with some timeless Zen stories. Yamoka Teshu was a young, intellectually gifted student of Zen who had dedicated a significant portion of his life to studying Buddhist philosophy, convinced that he had achieved a sophisticated comprehension of its most profound teachings. He was particularly captivated by the advanced Buddhist concepts of emptiness and non-duality, ideas he believed he had thoroughly mastered. Yamoka felt his profound grasp of these concepts marked him as a spiritually advanced individual. Having heard of the renowned Master Duan's reputation for wisdom and insight, Yamoka resolved to visit him, eager to demonstrate his own understanding and, hopefully, receive acknowledgement of his philosophical prowess. He approached this meeting with the self-assurance of someone who had thoroughly mastered complex intellectual material, anticipating an engaging and elevated spiritual discourse. When Yamoka was granted an audience with Master Duan, he found the master seated quietly in his simple room, calmly smoking his bamboo pipe. The atmosphere was peaceful and unpretentious, but Yamoka was eager to share his insights and initiate a profound philosophical discussion. I have come to share with you my understanding of the fundamental nature of reality as taught by the Buddha, Master. Yamoka began with the air of authority of someone well-versed in Buddhist doctrine. He then proceeded to deliver what he believed was a masterful summary of advanced Buddhist philosophy. The mind, Buddha, and sentient beings, after all, do not exist in any ultimate sense. Everything we perceive and experience is, upon close examination, empty of inherent existence. The true nature of all phenomena is emptiness itself. There is no solid, independent reality to be found anywhere. Yamoka continued, his confidence growing with each sentence. There is no realization to be achieved because there is no one to achieve it and nothing to be realized. There is no delusion to be overcome because delusion itself is empty. There is no sage and no ordinary person because these distinctions are merely conceptual fabrications with no ultimate reality. Furthermore, he concluded, satisfaction evident in his precise philosophical articulation, there is no one who gives teachings and nothing to be received. No teacher and no student. Because all such dualities are illusions created by conceptual thinking that fails to recognize the fundamental emptiness of existence. Throughout Yamoka's lengthy philosophical presentation, Master Duan continued to smoke his pipe in silence, showing no particular reaction to the young man's elaborate exposition of Buddhist metaphysics. His face remained calm and neutral, neither impressed nor dismissive of Yamoka's intellectual display. When Yamoka finished his discourse and waited expectantly for some acknowledgement of his profound understanding, Master Duan made no verbal response. Instead, he continued smoking quietly for several more moments, as if carefully considering what he had heard. Then, without any warning or explanation, Master Duan picked up his bamboo pipe and struck Yamoka hard on the head with it. The blow was unexpected and quite painful. Yamoka immediately jumped up from his seated position, his face flushed with anger and indignation. His carefully constructed philosophical composure vanished instantly, replaced by the very human emotions of pain, surprise, and rage. "Why did you hit me?" he demanded, his voice filled with outrage. "What kind of teaching method is this? How dare you strike a visitor who came here respectfully to discuss the Dharma?" Master Duan looked at the angry young man with a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "If nothing exists," he said calmly, "where did this anger come from?" Yamoka stood there speechless, his entire philosophical framework suddenly revealed as woefully inadequate to address his immediate experience. All his sophisticated understanding of emptiness and non-existence had dissolved the moment he encountered actual pain and a genuine emotional reaction. His intellectual grasp of Buddhist concepts proved utterly useless when faced with the direct reality of his own mind's responses. The Buddha taught, "Do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in anything simply because it is spoken and rumored by many. But after observation and analysis, when you find that anything agrees with reason and is conducive to the good and benefit of one and all, then accept it and live up to it." This ancient wisdom illuminates the crucial difference between intellectual acceptance of spiritual teachings and authentic realization that transforms how we actually live. What emerges from this story is a powerful teaching about the vast gap that can exist between conceptual understanding and embodied wisdom. Yamoka could articulate sophisticated Buddhist philosophy with impressive precision, but his understanding remained purely intellectual rather than experiential. When challenged by immediate reality, his concepts offered no real guidance or stability. This tale unveils a pattern that appears frequently in spiritual development: the accumulation of spiritual knowledge that remains separate from actual transformation. We can study teachings about non-attachment while remaining deeply attached to our spiritual identity. We can understand theories about the illusory nature of the ego while defending our self-image with fierce intensity. We can master the vocabulary of enlightenment while remaining trapped in the same emotional patterns we've always experienced. Master Duan's teaching method was both skillful and direct. Rather than engaging in abstract philosophical debate, he created an immediate situation that would reveal the discrepancy between Yamoka's concepts and his actual level of realization. The pipe striking his head wasn't an act of aggression, but a compassionate teaching device designed to show the young man where his understanding remained merely theoretical. Why do we sometimes mistake intellectual comprehension for genuine spiritual attainment? The thinking mind is seductive in its ability to create elaborate frameworks that give us a sense of understanding and progress. When we can fluently explain complex spiritual concepts, we naturally feel that we've achieved something significant. But as Yamoka discovered, conceptual knowledge often proves inadequate when we encounter actual challenges to our equanimity. The anger that arose when Yamoka was struck revealed the gap between his philosophical stance and his emotional reality. If he had truly realized the emptiness of existence he described so eloquently, physical pain and unexpected treatment wouldn't have triggered such an immediate and intense reaction. His anger demonstrated that, despite his sophisticated rhetoric, his sense of self remained very much intact and reactive. Consider how this teaching might apply to your own spiritual or personal development. Are there areas where your intellectual understanding exceeds your actual capacity to embody what you know? Perhaps you understand the principles of mindfulness while still becoming lost in anxious thoughts during stressful situations. Maybe you believe in the importance of compassion while finding yourself harshly critical of people whose behavior annoys you. This pattern appears beyond formal spiritual contexts, in any domain where knowledge and practice diverge. We might understand the psychology of healthy relationships while still falling into dysfunctional communication patterns during conflict. We could know a great deal about nutrition and exercise while maintaining habits that don't support our well-being. The pipe in this story represents any experience that tests whether our understanding has moved beyond the conceptual level into genuine embodiment. These tests often arrive unexpectedly: a criticism that triggers defensiveness, a setback that reveals hidden attachments, or a conflict that exposes the gap between our spiritual ideals and our actual responses. Zen Buddhism emphasizes direct experience over intellectual knowledge precisely because concepts alone cannot transform consciousness. We can study meditation techniques extensively, but sitting quietly with a restless mind for 20 minutes often teaches us more about the nature of awareness than reading countless books about mindfulness theory. Master Duan's question, "Where did this anger come from?" pointed directly to the contradiction between Yamoka's philosophical position and his immediate experience. If nothing truly exists, including the self that could be offended, then anger should have no basis for arising. The fact that anger did arise so quickly and intensely revealed that Yamoka's realization of emptiness remained conceptual rather than experiential. The Buddha said, "However many holy words you read, however many you speak, what good will they do you if you do not act upon them?" Yamoka had absorbed many holy words about emptiness and non existence, but his reaction to the pipe demonstrated that these words hadn't yet transformed his actual relationship to experience. What's remarkable about this teaching encounter is how quickly it revealed the truth of Yamoka's situation. Rather than allowing him to continue building elaborate intellectual frameworks that might take years to deconstruct, Master Duan's direct intervention immediately exposed the gap between knowledge and realization. Tonight, as you reflect on your own spiritual and personal development, can you identify areas where your intellectual understanding might exceed your actual capacity to embody what you know? When tomorrow brings unexpected challenges, the metaphorical pipes that test our equanimity, will you respond from genuine realization or react from conditioned patterns? As the Buddha taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Perhaps the deepest thinking is learning to think less and embody more, discovering that true wisdom reveals itself not in what we can explain about emptiness, but in how empty we can remain when pipes strike our heads. Our next story speaks to the moment when understanding transcends effort. This is no water, no moon. Chiono had devoted many years to intensive Zen study and practice. She spent countless hours in meditation wrestling with profound koans and contemplating the deepest teachings of the Buddha. Her dedication was unwavering. She rose before dawn each day, sat in perfect posture through pain and discomfort, and approached her spiritual practice with the kind of fierce determination that impressed even her teachers. Despite her sincere efforts and obvious commitment, enlightenment continued to elude her. She could understand the concepts intellectually, speak eloquently about emptiness and non duality, and even guide other students through basic meditation techniques. But the final breakthrough, the direct realization that would transform her understanding completely, remained just beyond her grasp. Years passed in this way. Chiono began to feel a growing frustration with her practice. She watched as other students seemed to achieve insights that remained mysterious to her. She questioned her methods, intensified her efforts, and sometimes wondered if she lacked some essential capacity for awakening that others possessed naturally. One night, after a particularly long day of meditation and study, Chiono was walking slowly back to her small quarters. She carried an old wooden water pail that she had filled at the well earlier that evening. The pail was ancient, held together by strips of bamboo that had grown worn and weak with age. It had served her faithfully for many years, but she could feel it becoming increasingly fragile in her hands. As she walked through the moonlit courtyard, she became mesmerized by the sight before her. The full moon hung perfectly in the dark sky above, its bright light illuminating the temple grounds with a soft, ethereal glow. But what captured her attention was the reflection of that moon in the water she carried. There, contained within her humble pail, was a perfect, unbroken circle of light, the moon itself, complete and radiant, held in water. She walked carefully, almost reverently, watching this reflected moon dance gently with each step she took. The image was so clear, so perfect, that it seemed as real as the moon in the sky above. For a moment, she felt she was carrying something sacred, transporting this luminous presence from the well to her room. Suddenly, without warning, the aged bamboo strips that held the pail together finally gave way. The bottom of the bucket fell out completely, and all the water rushed to the ground in a single swift motion. In an instant, the reflection of the moon vanished completely. With no water, there was no moon. At that precise moment, watching the reflected moon disappear as the water hit the earth, Chiono experienced complete liberation. All her years of seeking, striving, and effort suddenly revealed themselves as unnecessary. The very thing she had been chasing, enlightenment, awakening, understanding, had never been separate from her to begin with. Like the moon's reflection, it had appeared to exist independently, but it was simply the natural expression of what was already present. Buddha spoke of this when he said, "Look within. You are the Buddha." The deeper teaching here shows us that spiritual realization often comes not through accumulation, but through release, not through grasping, but through letting go. This ancient tale illuminates a fundamental paradox in all spiritual seeking. We begin the path believing that enlightenment is something we must acquire, achieve, or attain through effort and discipline. We imagine it as a distant goal, a state of consciousness we don't currently possess, but might earn through sufficient practice and dedication. Chiono's years of sincere effort weren't wasted. They were necessary preparation, like tenderizing the soil before planting seeds. But her breakthrough came precisely when she stopped trying to capture and hold on to spiritual realization and instead witnessed its natural arising and dissolving. Why do we find it so difficult to recognize what is already present? The seeking mind creates the very separation it hopes to overcome. When we believe that awakening exists out there or in the future, we overlook the awareness that is reading these words right now, the consciousness that experiences thoughts and emotions without being limited by them. Consider how this pattern plays out in your own spiritual life or personal development. Do you sometimes feel like you're chasing insights, trying to grasp peace, or working to achieve a state of mind that seems just beyond reach? The very effort to capture these experiences can prevent us from recognizing that the awareness capable of seeking is already what we're seeking. This doesn't mean abandoning all spiritual practice or personal growth efforts. Chiono's years of discipline created the conditions for her realization. But it does point toward a different relationship with practice, engaging wholeheartedly while holding the results lightly, like carrying water that might spill at any moment. Zen Master Bankei expressed this understanding when he said, "The unborn is the Buddha mind itself." When you have realized this fact, the Buddha mind with which you were born from your mother has done the Buddha's work from the very beginning. What we're seeking in meditation, therapy, or personal growth is the recognition of what was never absent. The water and the moon in the story represent the apparent duality between seeker and sought, between the ordinary mind and the awakened mind. As long as we believe these are separate, that the moon exists independently in the water, we try to safeguard and cherish our spiritual awakenings is natural. Yet when our self-constructed vessel of belief shatters, we are confronted with the profound realization that the perceived separation was nothing more than an illusion. This powerful lesson extends far beyond the confines of formal spiritual practice. It permeates every aspect of our lives, particularly those domains where we relentlessly pursue happiness, success, or fulfillment as if they were tangible objects to be acquired, possessions to be hoarded, rather than the inherent expressions of our very being. We chase the perfect relationship, envision the ideal job, and crave that elusive, ever peaceful state of mind. So often, these aspirations become mere reflections, shimmering mirages that we desperately try to capture and hold on to, failing to recognize that their essence, their potential, already resides within us, within our innate capacity to appreciate, to seek, and to simply be. In the practice of Zen, we cultivate the art of trusting the natural unfolding of events, the organic blossoming of understanding. We learn to relinquish the urge to force insights or demand particular experiences. Ironically, the most profound comprehension often dawns when we cease striving so intensely to grasp it. When we courageously allow the bottom to fall out of our carefully constructed containers, when we permit our meticulously crafted spiritual self-images to dissolve into the vastness of reality, we recall the Buddha's timeless wisdom. The one who has conquered himself is a far greater hero than he who has defeated 1,000 times 1,000 men. Chono's ultimate conquest was not a victory over ignorance, but rather the liberating recognition that the very battle he waged was rooted in a profound misunderstanding. Tonight, as you turn inward and contemplate your own journey of seeking and striving, can you, even for a moment, entertain the possibility of letting go? Can you imagine what it might feel like to allow the bottom to drop out of your carefully guarded spiritual container? What would unfold if you simply ceased trying to capture and hold on to your insights and instead placed your trust in the inherent wisdom that already breathes life into your every seeking? As the Buddha gently reminds us, within you lies a sanctuary of stillness, a refuge to which you can retreat at any time and simply, unapologetically be yourself. Perhaps, just perhaps, what we have been so diligently searching for has been gazing back at us through our own eyes all along. Now, let us turn our attention to a story about recognizing our inherent worth through the eyes of those who possess the ability to truly see. This is the story of the value of a diamond. A young student, strolling along a tranquil riverbank on a peaceful afternoon, noticed something among the smooth, well-worn stones at the water's edge. He reached down and picked up what appeared to be an unusually beautiful stone. It was larger than his fist and possessed a captivating crystalline structure that caught the sunlight in intriguing ways, scattering rainbows in its depths. Although he couldn't identify it, something about the stone's unique appearance suggested it might be more than just an ordinary river rock, tumbled smooth by the relentless flow of the water. Intrigued by his discovery, the student carried the stone to his Zen master, his sandals crunching softly on the path. "Master," he said, bowing respectfully, "I found this stone by the river. I'm curious to know if it holds any value, or if it's simply another piece of common rock." The master, his face etched with the wisdom of countless seasons, examined the stone briefly, turning it over in his weathered hands. Without betraying any indication of what he might already suspect about its true nature, he looked at his student with a thoughtful gaze. "Go to the marketplace," he instructed, his voice calm and steady, "and discover what people believe this stone is worth. But remember this carefully. No matter what offer you receive, do not sell it. Simply gather the information, learn what they would pay, and return to me with that knowledge." Obeying his teacher's instructions, the student made his way to the bustling marketplace in the heart of town. The air thrummed with the energy of commerce, filled with the calls of vendors and the chatter of shoppers. He approached a merchant who was selling oranges from a brightly colored cart, fresh fruit piled high in artful displays, their fragrant aroma filling the air. "Excuse me," the student said politely, holding out the stone for the merchant to see. "Could you tell me what you think this might be worth?" The orange merchant glanced at the stone with casual indifference, seeing only an interesting yet ultimately ordinary rock. "Well," he said after a moment's consideration, his eyes already scanning the crowd for potential customers, "it's certainly larger and prettier than most stones I see around here. I'd be willing to give you 10 oranges for it. Seems like a fair trade to me." The student thanked him respectfully, carefully tucking away the information, and continued his journey through the lively marketplace. Next, he approached a woman selling vegetables, her stall overflowing with fresh produce harvested from the surrounding local farms. Baskets overflowed with vibrant greens, earthy root vegetables, and plump, ripe tomatoes. "What do you think this stone might be worth?" he asked, holding it out for her inspection. The vegetable seller looked more closely than the orange merchant had, noticing the stone's unusual clarity and substantial weight. "This is quite an attractive specimen," she said thoughtfully, her fingers tracing the contours of the stone. "I'd offer you a whole sack of my finest potatoes for it. That would feed you well for weeks." Again, the student politely declined, his curiosity piqued by the varying opinions, and moved on deeper into the bustling market. He then sought out a goldsmith, a man whose expertise with precious metals and gems was renowned throughout the region. Surely, he reasoned, someone who worked with valuable materials would possess a more refined understanding of the true nature of his find. The goldsmith accepted the stone and examined it with meticulous care, his brow furrowed in concentration. He held it up to the light, scrutinizing its internal structure, and weighed it thoughtfully in his experienced hands, his fingers stained with the residue of precious metals. His eyes widened with a growing sense of recognition and excitement. "My boy," he said, his voice filled with obvious enthusiasm, "this is no ordinary stone. This is a very rare and valuable gem. I will give you 500 gold coins for it, enough money to live comfortably for many years." The student was astonished by this dramatic escalation in the stone's perceived value. However, he remembered his master's unwavering instructions and respectfully declined the goldsmith's generous offer, battling the temptation to accept such a fortune. Finally, driven by an insatiable curiosity, he sought out the most respected jeweler in the entire city, an elderly man revered for his unparalleled expertise with the most precious stones and his esteemed service to wealthy nobles and even royalty. This jeweler had handled treasures that belonged to kings and queens, and his knowledge was considered unmatched. The old jeweler received the stone with reverent care, his movements slow and deliberate, as if handling a sacred object. He held it up to examine it in the bright light streaming through his shop window, the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams. He turned it slowly, studying every facet, every internal reflection, his breath held captive in his chest. His expression gradually transformed from one of professional interest to one of profound awe and wonder, a lifetime of experience converging on this single moment. After several minutes of intense, silent examination, he gently placed the stone on a soft velvet cloth, his hands trembling slightly with emotion, and looked at the student with deep respect. "Young man," he said in a voice filled with reverence, "where did you acquire this extraordinary treasure? This is not merely a stone. It is one of the most magnificent diamonds I have ever encountered in my entire career. It is absolutely priceless. I could not afford to purchase it. Even if I sold everything I own, my entire shop, my house, all my possessions combined, it would not be sufficient to pay for what this is truly worth." The student, his mind reeling from the jeweler's pronouncement, returned to his master, his heart filled with a mixture of wonder and confusion. He recounted each encounter, meticulously detailing the dramatically different valuations he had received, the weight of the diamond heavy in his pouch. The Zen master listened to each part of the story with a knowing smile playing on his lips, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "You see," the master said gently when the student had finished his tale, "the orange merchant and the vegetable seller saw only an interesting rock, because that was the limit of their perception, the boundary of their understanding. The goldsmith recognized its material value because he possessed the knowledge to identify precious stones, to assess their worth in the marketplace. But only the master jeweler could perceive its true, immeasurable worth, because he possessed the deepest understanding, the most refined perception, cultivated over a lifetime of working with beauty and rarity." The master paused, his gaze piercing and compassionate, looking directly into his student's eyes. "Your life is like that diamond," he said softly. "You can choose to see yourself as having little value, like the first merchants did, dismissing your potential, focusing on perceived flaws. You can recognize some of your worth, like the goldsmith, acknowledging your talents and accomplishments, but still placing a limited price on your being. Or you can understand that you are absolutely priceless, just as you are, a unique and irreplaceable gem, as the master jeweler recognized. The choice of how to value yourself, the lens through which you view your own existence, depends entirely on the quality of perception you bring to looking at your own life. The Buddha once said, "If we could see the miracle of a single flower clearly, our whole life would change." This profound teaching resonates deeply with how we perceive not only the world around us in all its intricate beauty, but also ourselves within it, as an integral part of that unfolding miracle. What emerges from this story is a powerful and transformative truth about the intricate relationship between perception and value, between the clarity of our vision and our ability to recognize what is truly precious. The diamond's inherent worth never changed. What changed was the level of understanding, the depth of appreciation that each person brought to examining it. This ancient wisdom illuminates how we often undervalue ourselves, trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and criticism, because we are looking through the eyes of those who cannot see clearly, who are blinded by their own limitations, rather than through the eyes of those who can recognize our true and inherent worth. We might spend our lives seeking validation from people who, like the orange merchant, can only see surface appearances and obvious utility, judging us based on fleeting trends and superficial qualities. Or we might feel satisfied when someone recognizes our material accomplishments, like the goldsmith did, praising our skills and achievements, without realizing that our deepest value transcends any external achievement, any worldly possession. Why do we find it so difficult to recognize our own priceless nature? We are often conditioned from a young age to measure our worth through external metrics, our productivity, our achievements, our social status, our ability to meet the expectations of others, the approval of our peers. These measurements, while not entirely meaningless, are like seeing a magnificent diamond and thinking only about how many oranges it might buy. Consider for a moment how this teaching applies to your own relationship with yourself. Do you sometimes evaluate your worth based solely on your job performance, your physical appearance, your relationship status, or your financial situation? These aspects of life certainly matter in practical terms, shaping our experiences and influencing our choices. But they are like the goldsmith's valuation, real, certainly, but ultimately limited when compared to your inherent, unmeasurable value as a human being. The different levels of perception illustrated in the story also reveal the pitfalls of seeking recognition from people who lack the capacity to truly see us, who are unable to appreciate our unique qualities and contributions. When we feel hurt because someone doesn't appreciate our efforts, doesn't understand our perspective, or doesn't acknowledge our contributions, we might be expecting the orange merchant to see a diamond. This doesn't mean dismissing all feedback or becoming arrogant about our own perceived worth. Rather, it means cultivating the discernment to recognize who possesses the clarity of perception to truly see us, to appreciate the depth and complexity of our being. The master jeweler's recognition was valuable precisely because it stemmed from deep knowledge, refined understanding, and a genuine appreciation for beauty. Zen teacher Dogen wrote, "To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." As we cultivate a greater understanding of our true nature through dedicated practice and honest self reflection, we gradually begin to see ourselves through increasingly clear perception, like moving from the limited perspective of the orange merchant towards the enlightened vision of the master jeweler. This teaching also applies profoundly to how we see others. When we look at people through the lens of limited perception, we might see only their obvious characteristics or their social roles, judging them based on superficial criteria. But when we cultivate the master jeweler's quality of mindful attention, we begin to recognize the priceless nature present in every single person we encounter, regardless of their background, their beliefs, or their circumstances. Tonight, as you reflect on how you have been valuing yourself lately, can you imagine, even for a moment, looking at your life through the master jeweler's eyes? What would shift, what would change if you truly recognize deep in your heart that your worth is not dependent on your achievements, your physical appearance, your productivity, or anyone else's opinion of you? As the Buddha so eloquently taught, what we think, we become. When we truly see ourselves as priceless, we begin to live from that understanding, naturally expressing the diamond-like nature that was never actually hidden, but simply obscured by layers of self-doubt and limiting beliefs. Our journey through these teachings now draws to a gentle and peaceful close. We have walked a long and winding path together. From the simple acknowledgement of life's inevitable friction to the profound peace of surrendering and letting go, we have come to understand that our suffering arises not from life itself, but from our resistance to its natural flow, our clinging to illusions of control. We have discovered that beneath the passing clouds of our turbulent thoughts and overwhelming emotions, the vast and limitless sky of our awareness is always clear, always untouched, always present. We have learned to skillfully tune the strings of our heart, finding the middle way of balance and harmony, and to gently water the garden of our mind with the unconditional warmth of loving kindness, nurturing compassion and understanding within ourselves and towards others. We have seen that we are not isolated islands, adrift in a sea of separation, but rather we are all interconnected waves in a single, magnificent ocean of being, each unique, yet inextricably linked to the whole. Now, let us bring these threads together in a final, unifying moment of practice, solidifying these insights and integrating them into the fabric of our being. Find a comfortable and supportive position, allowing your body to relax and release any unnecessary tension. Gently close your eyes, turning your gaze inward. Take a deep, nourishing breath in, filling your lungs with life-giving energy, and then release it slowly, fully, letting go of any lingering stress or worry. Allow your body to feel heavy, supported, and completely at rest, surrendering to the present moment. Bring your gentle awareness to the subtle sensation of the air as it touches your nostrils, the cool inflow and the warm outflow. Just for this moment, allow this simple sensation to be your anchor, grounding you in the here and now. If thoughts arise, as they inevitably will, simply observe them as clouds drifting effortlessly across the vast open sky of your mind. Remember, you are the sky, not the clouds. Allow them to come and allow them to go without judgment or attachment. Now, gently feel into your heart space, the center of your being. Imagine a small, warm light shimmering in the center of your chest, a radiant spark of pure potential. With every in-breath, visualize this light growing a little brighter, a little warmer, expanding its gentle radiance. With every out-breath, imagine this warmth radiating outwards, permeating your entire body, soothing any areas of tension or discomfort. This is the light of your own innate goodness, your inherent Buddha nature, the diamond-like essence of your being. It has always been here, patiently waiting to be recognized, to be cultivated, to be allowed to shine. Simply rest in this warmth, in this gentle, loving presence, allowing yourself to be held in the embrace of your own compassionate heart. You are safe, you are whole, you are at peace. There is nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no other place you need to be. Just this, just here, just now. Thank you for walking this path with me, for sharing your presence and your willingness to explore the depths of your own being. Rest well, and may your journey continue to unfold with grace, wisdom, and boundless compassion.